Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So welcome to our, it's a good thing about computers, it tells you the date, November 15th, Tiverton School Committee meeting. Anyone signed up for open forum? This is, we don't have a school board clip, but there's no one signed up, no one here. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Palish?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
Ms. Pavo?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we're up to item 5A, new business presentation from Paper Student Tutoring Company. Dr. Sanchioni.
Dr. Sanchioni, can I just a point of clarification on this agenda item, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
And you can address it in your opening remarks, Dr. Sanchioni, that's fine. I just wasn't clear from this if you were seeking committee approval or if this has already been approved and signed and this is just a presentation for our information. So if you could just clarify that for us, thank you.
No, I'm seeking your final approval on it. I thought I outlined, I'm reading my letter to you right now, and I thought I had outlined that for you in the second, on the last paragraph there. But so just for clarity's sake, yes. So Danny, they with us? Okay. Well. Calls from them.
So I'm going to recommend, that we move to item 5B if Principal Zitol is available. Ask for a motion to that effect.
I'll make that, so moved. I'll make the second motion, sorry.
Okay, ask for a roll call vote. Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Palish?
Yes.
I vote yes. So is Andy queued up? Is he
Yeah,
ready to?
he's up there and
move?
he's ready to go.
Okay. Yep.
And
Great,
I'm
thank
gonna,
Mr.
just one
Zitoli,
second, I'm gonna ask for another point of clarification on this.
Yep.
It looks like we have two requests here. We have a request to add some new after-school activities because not all of these are new. Some of them are existing. And then we have a second request for stipends. So if we could take those separately or together.
I
but
think the votes, yeah, I would agree with you that the votes should be conducted separately. And the part of the way this got on the agenda was Dr. Sanchioni asked me if we needed to vote establishing new organizations. So that is by policy. But I think once the Dr. Zitoli, you're promoted.
You handle this?
Once Mr. Zitoli has done his presentation, I think it'll be clear how we will want to proceed or not proceed after discussion. So, Andy, take it away.
Just having a little trouble hearing, but it sounded like someone asked that there were some activities that we've had in the past that were unfunded, and then there were a couple new. And as you know, as part of our strategic plan, we're hoping to offer more activities for children in the afternoon of various types, of course. And as I realize, we do have pitcher money available every year, and then the Feinstein organization has also funded us. For example, we won the golden ticket last year, and that was a $5,000 check to the middle school. And they do offer, and that's why you'll see on there, the Feinstein Club, they do offer that group to do things. For example, we're working on a peace/hope tree right now. Once you do that in your school, you take a picture of that, and then the Feinstein organization will send you whatever the challenge is. I think in that case, it's 1,000. So that's where that money has come from, either the Feinstein money and or pitcher money, and that's roughly between $2,000 and $3,000 every year. And as I was adding some of the new things and speaking to Dr. Sanchioni about it, I realized that we had 4 or 5 that were unfunded, and I didn't think that would be fair to offer some of the new people a small stipend without offering some of the unfunded activities as well. So that's what you see there. For example, NJHS is unfunded. It's a lot of work. And Haley Shaw, who does that, it's probably out of all of the clubs the most work, and that's why that one is. I've asked for a $500 stipend there, but the rest were $250. So I didn't know if you wanted me to speak to any of those clubs, but you're correct that some we've had in the past that were unfunded, and some were new this year.
Yeah, I'm going to ask for a motion so we can open the discussion.
Could I just, before I make the motion, I'm happy to make it, but which activities are new that you're asking for school committee approval to start?
I think that's part of the discussion, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
The new ones,
sure, go ahead.
the new ones are leadership, gaming, and I think those are really the only new ones. The unfunded ones that we've done in the past would be leadership is new.
I don't know about volleyball or not.
Garden club is
is
new.
volleyball?
So I can tell you for sure that,
Last year as well, there's a lot of at our PTO meeting, there was a lot of parents asking. We have a lot of girls involved in town and club volleyball, so that's a big seller in between the.
So is it new?
I think we offered it last year, but it was unfunded.
and I think that the difference we're trying to understand is there are organizations that have already been approved by the committee per policy. So for instance, I know NGHS has, GSA has been, Garden Club has been. I don't know about
I don't know
Feinstein.
about volleyball. I don't remember
And
approving
I don't
that.
remember volleyball or Feinstein. No,
Gaming is new?
Yes.
gaming I think is new and leadership is new. So that's one thing, is that for the club to exist, it by policy has to be approved by this group. And so those, I think, are the ones that are new, are leadership,
Gaming.
gaming, and Feinstein,
Volleyball.
and volleyball.
Isn't that, Feinstein, was there a Feinstein's new?
Feinstein is not new.
Feinstein's not new.
I don't think we've ever.
We've never approved it, so it's new to this board.
Well, it could have been approved 30 years ago, I guess, or
I
whatever.
know they were doing it last year, and I obviously, in my second year, I don't go any further back than last year, but I know we were doing it last year, and it was unfunded. I think that's something that sort of, they offer through the Feinstein organization, that a teacher or two run it, and he offers challenges once or twice a month, and then he'll send money to schools if they meet some of those challenges. There are always things of positivity and hope and peace and anti-violence kind of things.
Right.
Well, I mean, I've probably been on this board the longest, and I don't remember that. Let's, just to cover all our bases, let's say
Yeah.
that leadership, gaming, volleyball, and the Feinstein Club are all new.
Okay. All right. So, and then, again, approving stipends is a separate potential issue.
Right.
That we would have to take up one, So, anyway, if you want to formulate a motion, Mrs. Palish.
I will make a motion to approve new after-school, middle school activity for leadership, gaming, volleyball, and Feinstein Club, contingent on Well, no,
Yeah,
I just
probably
want to
related.
approve them.
Okay,
They
yeah.
may be unfunded, but I would like to make
Okay.
a motion to approve them.
Okay. And then we can take up the stipend separately.
We can take up the stipend separately, correct?
So, all right. So we have a motion on the floor to approve what we think may be new organizations. We know at least 3 of them are old organizations, and we know a couple are definitely new. So I'll open the floor to questions from the committee to start.
I'll second that
Okay,
motion.
thanks, Mike. So
Thank
Mike, Mr. Dakotas is seconded. So I'll let you ask the first questions. Mr. Dakotas.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Zitoli. I do know volleyball did happen last year. Do we have any feedback on that, or how many kids, or what they did, or who they played, or anything?
It was more just a club, Mike, so they just sort of scrimmaged each other, and we opened up a couple of nets in the gym. So that was strictly a club. We didn't compete against anyone else. But I know that we have many girls who would like to see this happen.
Okay, well, it makes sense, because we have a pretty good program at the high school, so it would be a good training ground. There's no recreation in town to learn it, so this would be most of the kids' first exposure to volleyball in general, right besides gym class.
And or if they're playing club.
Okay. Okay, and then, and I think gaming is self-explanatory, and you explained the Feinstein, so I think I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mrs. Pavo?
Not right now, thank you.
Mrs. Palish?
No questions on the clubs, thank you.
Ms. Farnworth?
I have no questions.
Okay. Elaine, second shot?
No, no.
Any questions from the audience and/or anyone online? Okay, so the motion's been made. I don't have any questions either. Oh, sorry. Oh,
My
our
apologies.
student representative, Mr. Farley.
Just a question of clarification. Is it just middle school clubs, or is it all clubs in general that require an approval by the
All
committee?
clubs.
Okay, thank you.
That's it?
Yes, ironically enough, this came up and
All right.
a student asked me a similar
All
question.
right, so motion's been made and seconded. I'm going to ask for a vote unless there's any further discussion. Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Palish? Yes. Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So, thanks, Mr. Zertoli. So then the next
on.
issue then becomes whether we then allocate stipends to these advisors, which we all appreciate. They're stepping forward for sure. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the stipends, which I think came out to, I did it and then I forgot the number.
20.
20,
5 or 35.
it's 1, 2, 3, 4,
3,000.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, times 250, so it's 2,250. I have 2,750.
Well, we have 250 each for leadership. That's 500.
3.
Say it again. Oh, there's 3 names
3.
there. Thank you.
Yeah,
3250,
40,
right? 3250. Thank you. I didn't see the third name.
So 3,250.
I agree with Mike's 3250.
Yep, I get the same number. So for $3,250, anyone care to make that motion?
I'd like to make the motion to approve $3,250 for stipends for Kate Brennan, Megan Schreiner, Alina Grimshaw, $250 each. Rachel Martin, $250. Alina Grimshaw, $250 for gaming. Haley Shaw, $500 for National Junior Honor Society. $250 for Christina Hallman, and $250 for Alina Grimshaw for the Gender Self-Awareness Peer Support Network.
I think you have that back. You get them all?
Catherine Perry, 250 for Garden Club. I have it right?
Yep.
Madison
more.
Sweeney, 250 for Garden Club. And Nicole Pronk and Alyssa Lewis, 250 each for the Feinstein Club.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'm going to second it for discussion because I have a question.
Well, okay. That's, yeah, and sort of, we are now open for discussion. So, Mrs. Pavo.
Mr. Zitoli, you indicated where the money will usually come from, but do you anticipate that that money would be made available every year? Or would we at some point, have to add these clubs into our regular budget?
Well, I think if we kept it to just this amount of clubs, we probably would find that much just with pictures and the money that comes back from Feinstein every year. But I know as part of our strategic plan, we want to continue to add. And I do think one of the most important things for our kids in the middle is that they find their niche. Most kids will love school when they love some of the activities and that could be gaming or sport or drama. So I do think at some point, I think if we have the opportunity to add more clubs and more stipends, I think it would be beneficial for the children in the middle school for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Maureen? Mr. Dakotas?
No questions.
Mrs. Farnworth?
I do have a question. You reference, I understand you have the golden ticket through Feinstein this year. Are there any kind of provisions on that grant, any kind of stipulations as to how it should be spent?
The 5,000?
Assuming that a good chunk of this is coming from that.
Yeah, not as much actually. We used some of the 5,000 last year to design a little area in the library, like a cozy area for kids to sit and read books, specifically fifth graders. So we didn't use as much for this, but I think that money is always earmarked as long as it's for children, I would say.
Okay. And second, this picture money account, can you explain to me what that is and how much is in it?
Offhand, I don't know how much is in it, Mrs. Farnsworth, but I could find that out to you because we do keep a running thing. I know it's roughly, it's money that the picture company always gives back to schools, and the amount is dependent on how, I don't know exactly the percentage, but it's based on the number of kids that partake in buying the pictures. And I've always had that in all my schools. They just give a certain percentage back to the schools.
I'll just say off the cuff that I would prefer that they lower their prices rather than give the schools money back, to be honest.
I don't disagree with that.
That's the only question I have for now.
Okay. Ms. Palish?
So anyone that knows me, and my 16 years going on 20 now, I am not a fan of not including stipends in the budget for this very reason. We're picking and choosing winners and losers. There are so many teachers that are currently participating in and supporting after-school activities that I agree are very important, but they're not getting stipends. So your comment that it's not fair, it's not. So I am not in support of giving some stipends and not others, especially whenever we add activities, we say these activities are contingent upon funding. We have entire sports organizations still, cross-country is one of them I can think of, that we're not really even supporting. The coach gets a stipend, but the families are really doing a lot of fundraising. I know we've had activities that we actually had to cease offering because there wasn't proper support. So just in general, that's always been my philosophy. If we're not going to put it in the budget, I think we should, but I don't want to start picking winners and losers, that some people get stipends and others don't. I don't believe that the Feinstein money, that the intent of the Feinstein money was for supplementing Tiverton School District's budget. Mr. Feinstein and that Feinstein Foundation has been fantastic to all districts in Rhode Island. A lot of what they do is, you know, the whole point of the Junior Scholar Program is charity and giving to those in need. And while this does certainly support certain children, you know, the children that are involved in those activities, I don't believe it goes along with the foundation's mission. And I am also surprised to learn that we actually make money off of pictures. And I agree with Diane that I would rather they just lower the prices rather than having the school district make money off it. Or if we are getting a kickback, that we lower the prices ourselves in the upcoming year. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, those are, I think my questions have generally been answered as well. Although I would, Amy, do you have any sense of what this picture money is? This is my first time hearing about it too. So
My understanding is that it's a rebate of sort. You have a microphone? I do not have a microphone. So my understanding is that it is a rebate of sorts that is supposed to be directed to, I'm using the term a student activity account. It does not come back to the district per se that I'm aware of. And then that each respective school, my understanding is that they can then use it for some sort of student-focused activity.
okay, and the principals are all aware of this account, or
If I may, Dr.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
this
I
has
mean,
been,
we're
this
all
is
sort of-
long, you're going like 50 years now. This is an ongoing thing,
Okay,
whatever.
then I want my money back from when I was
Yeah, well,
getting
we can certainly look at
photographs.
that, but this is, I mean, it may be
No, I
catching you
really
by
don't.
surprise, but this has been going on for years. Anytime, since pictures have been taking place in schools, the vendor always has a contract with the school for a percent back to the school. Money goes into the student activities account. Because the money came from students, it has to be spent on students. So, you know,
Okay.
Principal Zitol is absolutely allocating this funds in the best interest of our students.
Okay. So Matthew Brady came up with this idea?
Possibly.
Thank you for those of you who got that one. Okay. Yeah, it's my first time hearing that we got, but that's, you know, again, that's good because that's a sustainable source of funding.
Right.
I understand Mrs. Palish's concerns and agree with them as well. And, you know, I think we do sort of every year or every couple of years kind of look at that again. It would be a good thing to look at again as we are amping up for the budget season to see what activities are occurring that have stipends attached to them and what activities are occurring that don't have stipends attached to them. With the idea that I agree, we should.
A long list.
It's a long list and it should be budget and it's not fair and we should try and give everybody
I
some
may,
recognition for their,
In light of the fairness question,
Yeah.
what Principal Zitoli has done is ensured that every activity at the middle school now is receiving a stipend, so there's no unfairness at the middle school.
okay, that's good. And, you know, maybe there isn't elsewhere too, but.
Yes, I was going to clarify that, and that was my point earlier.
Oh, and the
felt like-
intent, I
I
absolutely
absolutely-
appreciate the intent, Principal Zatoli. This isn't a knock on you at all. It's just a general, again, we're
Yeah.
picking winners and losers because there's a ton that aren't getting them.
And that's what we need to recognize, and we need to,
You know, as I mentioned before, you know, when children find their niche, especially in the middle school, whether through a club, an activity, a sport, it makes a big difference, you know, at school.
okay. So, anyway, if we could look at that again, Peter, and sort of figure out what we aren't funding with a view to trying to fund everything. Yeah, easier said than done, I know. So I'm gonna ask for a vote unless there's any other discussion or questions. All right, so, Mr. Dakotas,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth,
I will agree that these stipends belong as part of the budget process and not as a one-off, so I'm going to say no.
Mrs. Palish?
Consistent with my prior positions on these, I will say no, with appreciation for what Mr. Zitol was trying to do.
Okay. And I vote yes, so the motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Zitoli.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
We're set, Mr. Chair, for new business item A, if you'd like to go there.
Okay, so let's go back to item 5A, presentation from Paper Student Tutoring Company.
All right, so we're going to bring up Maddie Arthur, who works for Paper, which is a unique name for a tutoring company. At some point, we'll get the title, the genesis behind that. But Maddie, pleasure to have you with us today. You're addressing our school committee along with some of our administrators, and certainly it's a televised meeting. And if you can give the school committee an overview of the company and the benefits it provides to students, that'd be great.
Yes, 100%. Thank you all so much. I do have a demo prepared if you guys would like to see the platform. I'm not sure, again, if this is televised, if you're able to see it, I'd be more than happy to show you it in action. But I'll start with just kind of a high-level overview. So Paper is here to provide unlimited 24/7 support to all of your students, grades 6 through 12, at no cost to students or families. So Paper at the district level, right through funding, as you guys are probably very familiar with, but it's here to provide, again, unlimited 24/7 support in 4 different languages. So English, Spanish, French, and Mandarin, in over 200 subjects. Students can log in, get connected at any time in 30 seconds or less with one of our subject matter expert tutors, again, in any one of those over 200 subjects to get maybe homework help studying for an exam, quiz, etc., ACT prep, really the list goes on and on. Also, we have a writing review center where students can submit any written work, so essays, we see a lot of college essays, even resumes, so college and career readiness is a huge focus as well. But anything written, you name it, the student can submit it and get feedback in 24 hours or even less sometimes from one of our expert tutors as well. Again, I'm happy to show you the system. I'd love to if you guys have the time to see it. But that is a very high-level overview as a start for us.
I think a demonstration would be good.
Awesome. I would love to do that. I am unable currently to share my screen. If someone is able to give me those permissions.
Danny, do you have? You're the host. I know all about that stuff now.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys again. I know I'll try and keep this as brief as possible. I know there's a lot to go into, so I really do appreciate your time. Let me grab. So I do just want to show you kind of in writing really quick, right, what I just described. I know it's hard just to listen. If you guys, can I get a thumbs up that you can see my screen or just a quick confirmation? I saw thumbs up.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So like I mentioned, right, unlimited support in those 4 different languages. We have live chat where they can go connect with expert tutors, usually in 15 seconds or less. I'll show you that in a second. But then also that writing review center as well. You'll see kind of a little overview here on the right, but I do, again, want to show you what it actually looks like in the system, in real life, in real time. But first, I do quickly want to highlight kind of the key benefits for your students. So as you can imagine, the 24/7 support is a massive benefit in itself in those languages as well. But kind of we always like to highlight that this is for all members of your school community. One of the main benefits for students and for families is confidence building. So we always like to say we hope that more than anything, a student leaves a chat session or they review that feedback on their written work and feel a confidence boost, right? They just feel better about their work, more secure, right? We know that everyone's human, especially teachers. So we want to give teachers time back in their day too, to focus on the kids when they can. We also want to give family members time back in their day, especially with that other language support as well. Students can get help any time of day or night. Again, 365 days a year, 24/7. So over breaks, over weekends, you name it. Unfortunately, we know students can do work quite late at night, so paper is here to support them. Again, we just want to give teachers time back in their day and support students when they need it most, and maybe when their parents or when teachers cannot. Also, there's no limit to how long a student can work with one of our tutors. We have seen sessions last for 10 plus hours in the system. Again, we hope that students aren't spending too much time on work, but there's no limit to learning. We're always there to support them. So I just wanted to give kind of a quick overview of what we always like to highlight is the benefits before we actually dive in. But now what we're looking at here is the paper system. So this is what your students will see when they log in. They'll log in using their Clever account. Again, they're usually very familiar with that little paper button for them, or they can just go to our website and log in through Clever into paper through their Clever login directly. So it's very simple for them. And then you'll notice it is very friendly for them. It's very fun, very colorful and light. So we'll go through the dashboard in a second, but I do want to highlight the language setting. They can come in and choose that language preference. They'll also set this up the first time they log in. But for example, if I set my language to Spanish, you'll see the whole system and dashboard will translate, and we'll be sure to match them with a tutor in that language as well, which is really important. So I am unfortunately not brushed up on my Spanish, so I'm going to jump back into English. But I'll show you now kind of the dashboard, right? So our main features, chatting with a tutor. It's very comfortable. We're meeting them where they are. They can get connected, click of a button here. We also have that writing review center in the center. You'll see my grade level is set for an upper high. Oh, sorry, question?
No, you're good to continue, Maddie.
Okay, sorry about that. Wanted to make sure. We can definitely leave time for questions too, but you'll see my grade level is set for upper level high school. So I am prompted for career and college readiness support as well, but they can submit any writing, no limits for that review. We do like to incorporate a little bit of fun and challenge as well. So we have these achievements that change week over week, always encouraging students, you know, it's okay to seek help and work with tutors. Tutoring is not just for when you're struggling. This is a great way to make it fun as well. And then we have, again, another section of fun, if you will, kind of a gamified version of practicing math too. So you'll see that it's kind of like a plug and play for students that want to improve their math skills. So that was a very high level overview, but I will show you especially what it looks like to connect with a tutor. So students can type in a question and we'll actually match them to a tutor based on the subject of the question they enter. You can see some past questions here. They'll see their classes that they're currently enrolled in, make sure it's very relevant and subject specific. And then they also could just generally get help. Maybe they're looking to improve study skills, or they're wanting to learn about future career paths. We've seen that as well. Let's say, for example, I'm working on a math homework assignment. I'll go ahead and get connected with a tutor. And you'll see in about 10 seconds here. Oh, and it looks like, again, a little bit of fun. We get little animal trophies. So I can go ahead and add that to my trophy case, if you will. But you'll see I am connected to a real life human tutor. You'll see their name, and they're already asking me, right, how are you? I do just want to quickly point out, and we'll go back and chat with Nikki, but all sessions are stored in paper as well. So teachers will have access to view all of their student sessions. Students and parents can see, of course, their own sessions. And then admins, leaders at your district, of course, principals can see everything, full transparency in the system as well. It's very important to us so we could come in and see, right, what have I learned in the past? See, this might look familiar with something we'll go through here, but we'll go ahead and say, hi, Nikki. Can you please help me with my math homework? It's very, very familiar for students. It's just like text messaging, right? We're meeting them where they are. We know they're all very used to that for the most part, right? But it's very friendly in terms of just classic formatting, right? We have a math keyboard. Again, if I am working on that math homework, I have an equation. I know we see a lot of very advanced formulas as well. They can plug that in. They can send files directly in the system. They can actually snap a picture of their homework here, just if they're working on it, it's printed out, again, digital. We have emojis, right? We know those are always kind of fun for kids. And then we have a collaborative whiteboard as well. Send a lot of smiley faces in these demos, but really that's meant, we see a lot of graphing, right? And the tutor can work back and forth with the student as well. Here, let's see, maybe I have an example of a homework problem. I'll go ahead and send a photo from my computer. And the tutor then will work back and forth with me. And you'll see, right, they're interactive, they're real people. We always like to remind them. We sometimes get questions from the students, think they might be robots. But of course, they're going to use kind of a questioning approach. They're not here to give away answers. We know kids know how to Google. They can do that as much as they'd like. But we're really about kind of the Socratic method, if you will. We call it the paper method, right? It's very important that we're always focused on improving learning outcomes and really just improving learning for the kids overall. Okay, so just for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and end this session, but we could keep this going as long as we needed. We'll say we're running out of time here, but you'll see we're very big on feedback as well. It's never required for students, but we always want to make sure we're giving the best support we possibly can. So we'll say I have to go, but also great help. And we'll go ahead and submit that. Again, not required, but it is nice that students have this option. We see a lot of really nice feedback when they have really awesome tutors as well. The other section, right, we talked about uploading that written work. Again, very intuitive for them. Let's say they have just an essay they're working on, creative writing prompt. Just click upload my writing and then fill out this form. So we connect directly to Google Drive or any file on their computer. They can do PowerPoint, again, anything in a Google Drive, and then just fill out this form, right? Giving it a title, what type of work it is, what class is it for, what language. Very simple form to fill out here. And then of course, very important, right? Anything from the teacher instructions, rubric, anything that can help the tutor kind of guide the student to improving their writing, right? We're not grading writing, very important. We're just working to kind of highlight, we like to say the glows and grows, if you will, to provide really guided feedback to students to help them, again, improve that writing. So at the bottom, they'll always see an ETA for when they'll receive that feedback less, that this is the, or back, sorry, not less, this is the longest is what I was saying. Estimation, they'll get it back in 22 hours or less once they choose to submit. And we'll take a look at that feedback. So here's an example of some Spanish feedback too, if they do submit anything in Spanish, but we'll take a look here at another essay. They'll give kind of a summary of overall feedback and guidance on the essay. And then very exciting, they'll get annotated feedback kind of sentence by sentence. And you'll notice, right, unlike a lot of essays you guys may be familiar with seeing, we're not crossing things off. It's not grading. We're not discouraging or putting those red lines through it or rewriting. We're really just providing the guidance to help make that writing better or help guide the student towards making that better. So again, kind of glows and grows, if you will. But overall, that is paper. That's the main functionality. I'd love to answer any questions that you guys have while we're here as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I know we don't have a motion on the floor, but just in the interest of efficiency, I'm going to open the floor to questions first. Mr. Dakotas?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
perfect. I have a daughter that's in 7th grade, and she asked me last week, Dad, I think we need a math tutor. So are you saying that this is something that could do what she needs?
Yes, this seems very relevant. Yes. Your students do have access now as well. So they can start a tutoring session as you can say, good news, I got you a math tutor. I'm sure she'll be thrilled. So,
Okay.
Yeah, you do have access.
Okay, great. Well, that will save us some money. Thank you.
For sure.
Anything else, Mike?
That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Pavo?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Palish?
So there was a report released on November 7th from the Hetchiker report that was done by Brown University and UC Irvine, and I know you know where I'm going.
It's not, go ahead, finish it out.
And the report was suggesting that these types of services are promising but unproven. I did do a little bit of research beyond that, and I found another article in Chalkbeat in June that said something very similar, that while they're promising, they're really unproven, and that at the end of the day, tutoring is most effective when the students are getting that help during the school day, regularly scheduled sessions and live. I think that does sort of dovetail what our own experience with virtual education has been. We found that 2 years of virtual education, and it wasn't even 2 years, that we found that having the students live and in person was the best way to educate our children. And I just wonder if, every dollar is so tight in the district, if there isn't, and I understand you looked for a math tutor, but I wonder if there isn't further discussion for the board to just decide if this is the best way to spend that, the extra money if we can't find a tutor, given some of those study results. I'm happy to share those with anyone on the committee if you haven't seen them, but, and again, even the CEO of Paper in one of the articles admitted that, there needs to be more research, and that they are actually working with McGill University to get, some more data to prove that, that it virtual on-demand tutoring does, achieve what we want it to do, improve academic success and help our students. I think the biggest problem that they identified was it was kind of like the AP classes that we offered online. The students who are gonna do well are gonna be the ones who are gonna use that. It's not gonna probably be the students who need the most help, or the students that have the most backing from a parent or a caregiver. They're gonna be the one, they may be the ones who use the tutoring service, but just because you offer it, I guess was the comment, just because you offer it doesn't mean the students are going to use it, and that was definitely the downside. So I just wonder if there isn't more discussion for this board to have about if there isn't some other avenue to spend this money on that would advantage our children.
Okay, I'm going to ask our guest if she wants to respond to that at all.
I think you already kind of referenced what our CEO, Phil, mentioned as well. We're really actively working to get that evidence. It's something that takes time. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with kind of the adoption curve for ed tech tools. We typically see that, and myself too, I'm a manager of our onboarding team here, so I'm really primarily focused on getting districts like yours who are just starting with the software up and running and making sure that adoption is happening. But we really see, right, it takes up to 3 years to see all types of users, right? Maybe those later adopters to really get on board with a tool. So we do see that it takes time, and part of my job too, and my colleagues' job, and really our entire purpose here and at Paper, right, is to reach everyone in every way that we possibly can. So we partner directly with you, right, directly with your team to focus on what your goals are and make sure that we're catering to those, and we're providing resources that will encourage teachers to not only just introduce and share Paper in the classroom and tutoring, but actually embed it into their curriculum. Again, that takes time, but that's where we really see the success. So I know, for example, Irvine School District out in California, they have been partnered with Paper for 5 years, and they have just seen massive gains, right, in not only the usage, but also in academic outcomes, what they've really been looking for. It has, of course, it does take time, right? But Paper is now embedded fully into their curriculum. So to your point, right, they're using it in the classroom. We see a lot of small group instruction, teachers introducing it in that way. Even something as simple as like a daily warm-up or a daily exit ticket. We see a lot of that coming with a lot of results in the long term. So all of that being said, we definitely feel that and understand that. And we are partnered, we're partnered now also with Learn Platform to really hone in on those numbers, to get actual data and research to share with you guys to prove that these are going to improve academic outcomes. Because we can hear it and we can talk to students and survey principals and admins like you guys, right? The team here. And we know, but also, right, we need the data to back it up. So it's something that's very important to us and we're working on. I wish I could share that with you today, but that's a little bit more light onto kind of what we're focused on and how we can partner with you guys to ultimately achieve those goals and the strategic initiatives that you're striving towards.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I supplement that?
Sure.
Thank you. I've read one of the articles that Ms. Palish references, and it's not a research-based article by any means. In fact, it's commentary from a charter school of low-income students, and it's a school that didn't require students to use it, unlike us, where we are targeting and requiring students to use it. So I don't think there's a good corollary there, and it's not research at all. It's not valid. It's not reliable. It's a commentary from one district, a charter school, so to say. As you already heard me say, our intention is to require our students to use it. One of the things in my memo to you, and again, a reminder that last year when we did the tutoring, it was online. This is why we want to go to this platform. The tutoring we did that had great success, that got the high school to 100% graduation rate, was online. And we saw how our students engaged with our tutors and how it was limited because our tutors were our teachers and we were burning them out and they were reluctant to continue to do this, but we saw the great gains, but it was just for a select group of students. Now we can offer this to 800 students. I want the community to know that we vetted this deeply. We spoke to 3 different districts, an ISD in Texas, a district in Massachusetts, 2 districts in Massachusetts, and across the board, all 3 of those districts told us what a significant impact it had on academic achievement. So again, we vetted it. We're going to require students to use this as determined by our teachers. We had success with online tutoring. This is just another platform to do that. It just expands the usership amongst a select group of students to all of our students, and we think it's going to be a huge difference maker for us.
Okay. Deb, you have the floor. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Mrs. Farnworth?
What is the, you mentioned, Dr. Sanchioni, 800 students. That's not our entire student body. So what grade levels are you targeting here?
6 through 12.
6 through 12? And you reference how you plan to require students to use this. Exactly how would that happen?
So just like last year, again, we required students to log on and be with our tutors. Our teachers will make
I don't
determinations.
think we ever, as a body, went through the process of how the tutoring was being delivered last year, so it's kind of...
Yeah, so I'm sharing with you how it worked last year. Our principals, through our teachers, targeted students who we knew they needed extra academic support, and they were required to log on at 6, 7 o'clock at night, work with our tutors to get the success they had. So again, it generates our confidence of moving forward with this for a greater audience.
And then my second question is, my understanding is that ESSER funds were generally to be used to make up for learning loss attributed to COVID. And my experience with online tools is that your students most apt to embrace that are the ones who are probably higher performing to begin with. That students who are truly struggling may not even try this. I'm not sure how you can actually require it for 800 kids. That I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that paper is looking for, it appears, a 3-year commitment in order to see results. We only have one-time funding here. We certainly don't have room for it in our budget. It seems to me, I don't know, to address this learning loss, would we not be better arranging for live, in-person, at the schools tutoring?
I can just share with you again the success we had with online tutoring, live in-person tutoring after school. Students are reluctant to stay after. If you're talking about a population of students who are already academically at risk, they're not going to show up. They showed up to
I don't
online
think they'll do
tutoring.
this either.
I'm not sure how you can make that claim when I'm saying to you, last year, we took our most needy students and got them to walk the stage because they did show up to tutoring religiously, promptly, on time, repetitively.
But it was also not a chat. And the impression I'm getting from this is that it is 100% chat-based, right? If you did it online with our teachers, I have to assume it was similar to what you did in the classrooms. It would be like a Zoom meeting, if you will. Is that what the structure was?
Right.
So I'm going to call point of order. I really just
Sure.
wanted to be able to get questions to our, to the presenter. So I'm going to, at this point, ask for a motion to approve so that we can continue the discussion and at least follow regular parliamentary order.
I will make an motion, but I'm going to make a motion to deny the recommendation.
So I want to be clear on the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think we actually, Deb, need a motion to approve that we can then vote down.
Why?
Because you're sort of like
He's-
proving a negative, I guess.
He's asking for a motion to allow him to sign a contract, and I'm saying I am going to deny that request.
Okay, so your motion is to deny.
Deny the permission to the superintendent to sign a contract with paper.
And then if the motion fails, does that tacitly approve the superintendent's? That's, I guess,
If
that's
so,
my
if
point.
you've, that's okay, we'll do it whatever you think. If you want a motion to approve, that's fine.
I just think if we make a motion.
If that's cleaner for you, no,
Okay,
no,
all
that's
right,
fine.
All right, because.
I'm not making it, but that's fine.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the superintendent's request.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. So I just wanted to get a motion on the floor, so we are, again, following regular parliamentary procedure. And I guess my point is, if we made a motion to deny, does that then imply that if the motion fails?
Oh,
the motion-
understood,
It's
understood.
approved?
Yep,
I
yep.
don't know.
Understood.
I guess I'd have to talk to a lawyer. So anyway.
That's fine, understood,
So the
Dr.
motion is
Larkin.
made and on the floor. So at this point, I'm going to ask if there's any other questions from the committee member of our representative from paper. I've given everybody an opportunity, I think.
May I just ask one?
Yeah, that's why I asked if there were any questions.
Do you have contracts with any districts in Rhode Island?
That is a great question for my sales colleagues right now. I can check for you guys to make sure and get back to you on that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
So I can answer that question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
No, we are the first district in Rhode Island, and our paper was gracious enough to give us a 20% district to be a leader in Rhode Island to adopt it first.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for our presenter? And then I'm going to turn the floor over. Yep. No?
No.
Okay.
Dr. Larkin,
Mr. Farley.
I just had one question. So you say the chats are recorded. Must I presume is there a moderator, if you will, on the paper side, or is it purely admin on the district side moderating these chats?
Great question. So we have moderators. They're called platform managers. They're on 24/7. They're always looking for any sessions with worrisome, right? Anything inappropriate language or behavior. And they will contact emergency contacts at your district immediately if there is anything extremely concerning, anything that's less than that, right? Inappropriate. We use a flagging system. So students will be flagged, the teacher and your leaders will be notified immediately, right? You guys are best equipped to handle and manage those scenarios. So we will always escalate to you. But our tutors are trained in safe talk as well. before, if we have any time between contacting your emergency contacts, right, or getting a hold of you guys. But our platform managers are on 24/7, always monitoring that.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, so again, we have a motion on the floor. I'm gonna, I don't know, I'm gonna let Peter speak if you want to speak now. Have been any, to add to any other points?
I want the committee to be clear that this isn't a contract, this is a curriculum. It falls under our purview to adopt curriculum. We're asking you to shift funds from ESSER 3. If that's not your prerogative, we will pursue this through other means. This is in the best interest of our students. It's been vetted by our administration. It's been accepted by our teachers. It's already been in use by our students. I find it difficult to feel that you would challenge the educational leadership of this district to do the right thing for our students. So, again, I think everything I've shared with you, we vetted this. We had success with it. We're requiring our students to use it, and we're delivering results, and that's the ultimate pinnacle of what we're trying to accomplish here, and I don't think you should be an impediment to us achieving our goals.
Okay, other questions from members of the committee? Mr. Dakotas?
So I guess my only question would be, if this is a success after the 2-year contract, correct? Where do you think we could find the money to continue it past year 2?
You know, that's a great question, and it's something that it's hard to answer, you know, without a forecast of what our budget would be and so forth. But like anything, if you see that it's generating great results and great success for our students, we always find a way.
So if we go into a 2-year contract now, do we get a 3rd year free? Is that something we can push for? Thank you, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. Ms. Pavo?
My question is, are we already committed to a 2-year contract?
Not committed.
Not committed, okay. That's it.
Mrs. Barnworth?
I guess I will reiterate my objection to using ESSER 3 funds for something that appears to be more of a long-term situation, not necessarily geared toward those students in most need from COVID learning loss. To me, that's where we should be focusing our funds.
Okay. Ms. Palish?
Dr. Sanchioni, did I just hear you say that this board has no authority over curriculum? Could you clarify that for me?
My tenure here, we've adopted curriculums across the board, language arts, for mathematics and all that. And I don't recall this committee ever getting involved in the selection of that curriculum and or.
But you do understand that it is this board's duty for taxpayers, parents, and students to make sure that taxpayer dollars, and these are taxpayer dollars, including these ESSER funds, these are public funds, are spent in the best way that we feel possible.
So
and I understand you might not agree,
I think there's a level
to suggest that, and that's what I'm hearing, is I'm hearing a suggestion that we don't know what we're doing and we have no business determining how we think funds are best spent, but that literally is our job by state law. The budgeted funds, setting the direction, the strategic direction, that is the board's, and we happily work with you and your administrators, and we support all of them. I think they know that. We've all been on here for years. We're parents, grandparents, taxpayers ourselves, but please don't take a disagreement with you over how the funds should be spent as some sort of lack of support for the administration and what you're doing here. It's just a difference of opinion, and that's what we've been elected to do.
I would challenge that greatly and wholeheartedly. It would be like me walking into your accounting firm and telling you that you can't use that accounting software because, I don't think that's the best spend of money, but you're the expert there. You know all about that software. How could I interrupt that? And you're doing the same thing. I'm telling you.
We're the board of directors. The board of directors do that in corporations all the time. We have an executive committee at my accounting firm, and somebody has to make the decisions. And again, I
So you
just,
feel
I
that's in
just
your
feel
level of
that
expertise?
you're taking offense, and it's not meant to be offensive. We're not meant to question.
It is, though. It is.
Oh,
You're
that's too
taking every
bad.
administrator in this district who spent countless hours vetting this opportunity for our students to come back here and say, this is going to be a difference maker. It's part of our strategic
But we
plan.
do that every
It's part
budget
of our-"
session.
Excuse
We
me?
make decisions every budget session about what things we're going to support.
So,
But I
I
don't want to,
don't-
but I think it's unfortunate that you seem defensive and hurt by
Oh, I'm not
us
defensive
making a
at all. I'm
different.
just perplexed that someone would try to interrupt what we're doing in the best interest of our students and challenging the expertise of people who have advanced degrees in education in all this field and say, no, you're not going to do it. That's questionable to me, but.
So we're getting close to getting off our agenda with this discussion, so I'm going to ask that be stopped now and be pursued elsewhere or at another time. So I'm going to ask if there's any other questions from members of the board about the program itself. So, and I guess since I don't really have questions, but I guess some answer to some of the concerns that have been raised so far this evening. I think one of them is that, one is that we've actually used all of our ESSER money basically to continue to maintain services which are really in operations. So this is not really that different. And it has to do with the fact that we are basically closing the deficit created by the 2020 budget with ESSER money. That's as far as I can see it. That's what the math tells me. The second is that this is a new world in many respects, and this is one of them. That, yes, I agree, in-person learning clearly was better than virtual learning, but virtual learning was better than no learning at all. And clearly, the virtual learning was more successful for students who were able to engage meaningfully than for those that were not, and whether or not they had supportive families, as is always the case. When a kid's engaged, and if this is one way to engage them, I think it is worth trying. The article, Deb, that you cited, I read as well. I think it did raise valid concerns, but I think it was also problematic in both the district it was looking at, as well as the way that the program was rolled out, and probably to another extent, the demographics of the student population they were looking at. And I think the company was upfront in acknowledging that and recognizing that it needed more data and study, and that this is an evolving process. And I don't think we will know without trying it whether or not this is something ultimately that will be useful for Tiverton. I think if we implement it rigorously and try to assess exactly what impact it is having, not in, you can't turn a battleship on a dime. We're not going to see it maybe even a year or maybe even 2 years, and maybe we won't have the funding after 2 years. I recognize all of those, but I think this is an endeavor worth trying. And it's not a zero-sum game in the sense that it's not an if or it can be both and. I do believe that clearly students will benefit from in-person tutoring, especially those who are not, who need it most. However, if we don't have the tutors, we don't have the tutors. If we're burning out the teachers that we have, then we have to look elsewhere for other resources to provide other opportunities for all of our students in order to succeed. So I'm going to support this this motion. I don't know if there's any questions from anyone else present or from online.
Dr. Larkin?
Mr. Farley, I'm sorry. You have good questions.
I suppose just one question and then a comment. Am I to understand, I don't know who might be able to answer this, but Dr. Sanchioni, I'm going to go to you. I apologize. There might have been a suggestion that this paper would also be used in the classroom to supplement the teacher's teaching as well. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, you're correct in that. This has been presented to our middle school and high school staff. They're very excited to use it for exactly what you're describing. And I know Maddie tried to do a brief presentation, and this is what other districts do. So if a teacher has 4 or 5 students, let's say it's a math class and they didn't understand how to quantify exponents, she can have those students go on with the tutor in the back of the room, get the direct instruction they need, pick up on the skill that they may be lagging on, and come right back to the class then. So it's so many options, and our staff is so excited to use it, but you're absolutely right.
Okay. Just a comment. There was some talk about whether or not students would use it. I think I've learned a lot about what how students learn in the past 2 years, and one of the things Dr. Larkin mentioned that I have learned is that every student learns differently. I know students who actually thrived on a virtual environment, and I think some students just do better even without a face and are just able to ask questions without having to go up and, well, ask them, if you will. Additionally, I wholeheartedly believe if students are given the chance and given the prerogative to use the service, they will. I know teachers who use websites like this, and the whole class participates. I do think if we do find the money, I think teachers will find a way to use it, students will find a way to use it, and I think it will be rather useful.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from anyone else in the?
Yep. Dr. Larkin, one more thing,
Yep.
sorry. And thank you, Sam, that's a good point. You're in school right now, you're a student. So, one of the ESSER 3 allowable uses is to provide principals and other school leaders with resources necessary to address the needs of their individual schools. And I just wanted to give a quick synopsis of what a 7th grader in the school district could look like. So today, my daughter had National Junior Honor Society after school. Tomorrow, she has mock trial after school. And then another week or two, if she's lucky enough to make the basketball team, like she did last year, she'll probably have basketball every day after school. She just got off cross country. And that'll somehow flip to softball, I'm sure, in the spring. So this might be good for some students in the aspect that my kid just can't really stay after school for live tutoring. And she probably would do better live tutoring, I'd admit that. But in the essence of time, this would be great at 7 at night when she's eating dinner, she's trying to do something. This would fit in. And I'm sure there's a category of students, like Sam mentioned, that they would probably latch on to that. So for me, as a parent, that sounds like something that we should try. That's just my opinion. Thank you for letting me talk.
Mike, thank you for making that comment, because that was actually something I thought about as well about this, which can't turn back the wheels of time. However, I can remember when my children were younger and trying to learn math in a way that I never could figure out why they were trying to teach anybody math in that way, because it didn't make any sense whatsoever. But this would be a wonderful collaborator with a parent who doesn't understand what they were, lattices or something like that. Is that what they were trying to teach?
Those terrible.
Yes. So, I didn't know, I did not know the phone number, and which is good, of the teacher who might have been able to explain lattices to me. But I bet I probably could have found someone on paper who could have explained lattices to me, which would have then empowered me to actually explain how not to do long division the way I learned how to do it, but to do whatever they did with lattices, and I still don't know what it really was. But I do see this as actually a valuable collaborator, not just for teachers and students, but for parents as well. So that is another reason why I will support it. Any other comments or questions?
Dr. Larkin, having listened to all the various points of view, I think, including yours, Sam, and yours, Mike, as the parent of a current student, I will be willing to go along with this. I still feel it's unproven, but we won't know until we try. I will also say that I'm still very concerned that those students most in danger of not graduating, I just can't see them taking full advantage of this to where you would expect them to. But I am certainly recognizing that we have 1,800 students, 800 of whom would be afforded this opportunity. If that's how we want to use our ESSER 3 funds, then who am I to say no?
Well, and if nobody uses it, nobody uses it, but we may find that a lot of people use it.
And can I say, Dr. Sanchioni, that really was the thing that concerned me the most, is that the reading that the children you want to reach the most are the children who aren't using it. But you're saying that you don't believe in our district that's going to be an issue.
I'll say that with great confidence, it's not going to be an issue. I'm going to be happy in 2 months and 3 months from now to show you the data and who's using it and how they're using it.
So
It's all about the
so that's
execution.
okay, and I would like to hold you to that. Would you, if we approve this tonight, would you in 3 or 4 months come back and give us some data in our own district? Because we can, other districts, what they do, to your point, this district, what they did there, it's a good touch point, but what's happening in our own district, I think, is the most important.
Yeah, I'll be pleased to do that because I'm confident.
So is it a 2-year contract or 1?
It's a 2-year it's 2 because again, I've dealt with Maddie's colleagues and they steeply discounted it for us, and so it seemed worthwhile, and I gave you some information on the ESSER 3 funds. It just seems worthwhile to take that steep discount and make it available for 2 years.
Okay.
Still not too late to get the buy 2, get 1 free.
I'm not sure Maddie's qualified.
Maddie, buy 2, get 1 free, right? BOGO.
All right, I'm going to try and conduct a vote. Mrs. Palish,
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Pava,
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas.
Yes.
What if I voted no? I vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank
It was a
you.
great discussion.
Robust.
Thanks, Maddie.
All right, thanks, Maddie. Actually, not quite, but it was one for the record, for the whatever.
That's the point. That's why we have open meetings.
Sorry, guys, just confirming that I'm okay to hop off.
Yes.
Yes,
yes.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't know if I missed that. Thank you all.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are up to item 5C. Dr. Sanchioni, regarding the RFP for the architect for the next stage of our renovations.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And tonight, pleased to bring to the committee 2 architect finalists. Give you an idea how we got here. We went out for an RFP for an architect for the district. We had 5 firms apply. We did a paper screen and decided we would interview 3 firms that we felt best matched the needs of Tiverton. Those 3 firms were interviewed by the building committee. Multiple members of the building committee came that day, rated each one of the firms, and we had 2 that were very close in the ratings. Both of those firms will be presenting to you here this evening. So at this point, I'm pleased to bring up the firm of Bruce Thornton and their team. I know they have a presentation for you, and I'll let you introduce yourself and the team. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having us, and we're glad that we were here for the most spirited discussion in years. I really appreciate.
We are easier, really.
Don't believe me.
we certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and to be invited back, and appreciate the time that you all put in. I know I've spent the last 7 years on my local planning board, meetings just like this. Christine Shea has spent a lot of time recently in the Tiverton Planning Board, and also has to sit through meetings just like this. But we're the folks, come on up, we're the folks that are going to drive the project, and we're not a marketing team, we're the people that do the work. So I will read off a piece of paper because I'm not the marketing team. I don't do this presentation every week. But as we go through the interview, please feel free to stop us with any questions that you have. We'd love this to be a conversation about what the needs of the school are. And if you want to advance the slide, these are the people that are in the room today. Is there a clicker?
Danny, do you
Did
have
you want to
the-
give me,
okay.
or? All right, just tell you when we want to advance. Okay, so these are the people that are in the room today. I'm Nathaniel Ginsberg. I'm a principal with Brewster Thornton Group.
Hi, my name's Arti Kathuria, and I'm a project architect with the Brewster Thornton Group Architects, and I've worked on several K-12 projects and also done successful RIDE Stage 2, RIDE Stage 3 submissions, and I'll also be a primary point of contact on the project.
And I'm Christine Shea. I'm an associate with Brewster Thornton and a project manager, and I'm a resident of Tiverton and really excited for this opportunity.
So this is the project team. Wow, you were good with that. This is the project team. We have assembled a group of consultants and engineers, experts, thought leaders in the K-12 business that we have worked with on many successful projects. So they have the expertise to get a stage 2 and stage 3 done across all 5 schools, knowing that the projects may change, we may find things as we go, things that haven't been thought of yet. So we're always willing to bring on more experts as we go through the stage 2s and the stage 3s, and make sure that we have the right people on our team at the right time. So a bit more about our firm. Brewster Thornton Group is a local women-owned business. We've been in business building better communities for 30 years. I joined the firm about 20 years ago this month, bringing with me about a decade worth of K-12 experience. Our commitment to community, to being leaders, to creativity, to communication has really served us well. We have a very loyal client base. Most of our clients are repeat clients that have worked with us to improve their campuses and school districts across multiple projects. If you can go back one, back one more. Oh, it doesn't seem to be in there. That's all right. There was a slide that showed a lot of the communities that we've worked with recently. So those communities included Bristol and Barrington, Pawtucket, where we're working on our second school, 3 schools that we've done in Providence, working with most of the consultants that were shown on our project team. Studio Jade is mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers that we've worked with on at least half a dozen educational projects now. They have a presence in Rhode Island, and they have worked with many schools. Traverse being another that has worked on quite a few athletic projects as well.
So I don't have a script, so I'm just going to wing it. So like Nate said, we only pick projects that build better communities, and what's better a community building than our school system. This community means a little bit more because it's my own. We're raising our family here. I sit on the planning board here, as we mentioned. Our almost 2-year-old will go through this school system, so we have to get it right. Any team that you guys are going to pick, will do a great job. And at the end of the day, they'll go on to the next one, but you and I have to be here and accountable to our students and teachers and parents, myself included. So we have to get this right. And we propose doing that by taking a fresh look at these projects and enhancing them, because anyone can do an upgrade project. What we would propose doing is looking at things like incorporating 20th century learning, 21st century learning, security, and we can do that in a lot of ways. So for example, a project like a parking lot, anyone can do a parking lot, but we can look at it and talk about better circulation, reducing the parent pickup lines, enhancing security. I know it takes a while for you guys to plow them, so look at ways to be more efficient there and get your schools back online. A project that's replacing glazing, we can take a look at sight lines when we put that glazing back and understand security better that way. We can look to connect your entries with your administrative wings so that people, when they come to the building, are going to be, asked to see ID before they have access to the school. I know when I walked through the buildings last week with Mike, your maintenance guy, we were able to just come right in before you even knew who I was. So it'd be really interesting to be able to connect the dots there. We can build passive security into a simple flooring project, which is what we did at Lincoln High School. So there are many ways to upgrade these projects. I think that we can be the leaders. I know this isn't your first and only job, so you need someone who can push these projects forward in your tight timeline and really, be accountable for them. But we're also going to be partners because these are your schools. You know them best. What are your issues? How can we resolve them? So.
We took a look at what needs to be done, and we identified the different parts of the project and our key team members who will champion which part. The outside by Traverse, and the building systems by Studio Jade and Brewster Thornton. The interior scope, which includes architectural and 21st century learning spaces. So as Nate mentioned, these consultants are people we work with on an everyday basis. And, we picked this team because whether it's one science lab project, which is being upgraded in one university, or if it's an entire K through 12 school, they respond in a timely fashion, instant, give it their 100%, and that's what our focus is also. We will work with you to identify the Okay. We understand these projects need to be prioritized for rights submission, which is around the corner in early 2023, and come up with a plan that works with your priorities, what is least disruptive to the schools, and aligns with the funding goals of the committee on this project.
So part of the ride submission process is a focus on the New England CHIPS program. Environmentally responsible buildings are really important to us. They're part of what Brewster Thornton Group does with every project. The good thing is that the green products, green building techniques are really becoming standard parts of the construction industry. We have a lot of products that we have researched used previously that don't add cost but are highly recycled materials or recyclable materials as part of that system. But the New England CHIPS program is really kind of a whole nother level, and I think there are a lot of requirements as part of that program that are unfamiliar to some contractors and tend to add costs to the early part. But what's really important to understand for this project is this is New England CHIPS for renovation. So the full criteria is a 326-page guidebook, but these are the only criteria that we would need to satisfy as part of a renovation. So in the interest of getting the best economy for Tiverton and for making sure that we spend dollars where you're going to get the most impact, we're going to make sure that we stick to the criteria that are required for only for the chips for renovation. So that infrastructure that is put into the building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, building systems, are really part of the whole educational environment. And our partners at Studio Jade can speak to this slide much better than I can, but and they were up for the last interview, so they did a really great job of talking about daylighting, talking about building comfort and how that improves education. So we're going to work with them closely to make sure that not only do we know that the systems are being utilized well so that they're energy efficient, but that we've done energy modeling and have the data to back up the systems that we're putting in. 70% of the work that we do is in occupied buildings. We know that the work that's being discussed as part of the stage 1 is all in occupied buildings. It's going to be really critically important to us to work with each school individually, work with the building committee, work with the construction manager to come up with a plan that allows us to implement these projects in a way that makes sense. So, you know, what does that mean? Well, it could be different for different schools. It could be different for different age groups. Does it, you know, do we do all the asphalt at once because that's going to be the most economical way to do it? Probably. Do we do one media lab at a time because we want to do one and get the lessons learned and then move on to the next one? Maybe that makes the most sense. So we're gonna work together, and we've done that in other communities as well.
So one of the most important pieces of any renovation project is the interior design. It's what everyone's going to see and feel. It has the opportunity to connect your mood or help students learn or not learn. So it's really important that we take a look at each space and how it's designed. And we're going to use products that are durable and low maintenance because we want these projects to last. We also are going to take a look at, we know not every space is getting renovated, so we need to marry the two so it doesn't look like one versus the other, that everything looks cohesive at the end of the day. That's really important. The photos that you see here are Lincoln High School. We were the interior architects for that project recently. And one of the interesting things about this project is the high school is massive. So we incorporated wayfinding into our interior design and materials. So you'll see the colors on the floor and certain accent walls, so everyone knows that if you have a class in a science class, that's in the yellow wing. You'll be able to get there quickly, efficiently, and it's, you know, built right into the makeup of the interiors.
So when we start our interior design projects, we ask ourselves, what would the end user feel like in this space? And then we collaborate with the educators, so we speak your language, and we align our design efforts with the vision you want for the space. So if we look at our times, it's quite possible that what students choose to be in future has not even been invented yet. So interior design would play a critical role in creating that learning environment that would make our students of today tenacious learners. And what you see on screen are examples of makerspace where students are tinkering, creating, constructing their own knowledge through experimentation, through trial and error. And small group interaction is key, where they feel safe with and have eye-to-eye contact with their peers, make mistakes, make discoveries, and the teacher is there to play the role of a mentor to put the findings in real-world context. So we look into all these aspects and have programming meetings with you so we can align the different modalities of learning, teaching into our design approach. In the next slide, these are examples of science labs where individual experimentation and group work is key. And over here, an environment that says that experimentation and learning is far more valuable than accumulating knowledge. And as you see in your classroom, some students are haptic learners, they're always tinkering. Some students will, pause and look out the window because they're making connections in their head. Some read the text and assimilate the information from there. So our design approach is to cater to all these different learning methodologies and mesh the whole digital, virtual learning and analog learning the group has been discussing. We look into all these aspects and see how that can be translated into an actual physical built space.
So Media Labs were really a big part of the work that was identified in stage 1. And I know that if I asked people in this room what a Media Lab is, I might get 10 different answers. There are a lot of different ideas about what a Media Lab is today, what a Media Lab should be. And I think this changes again when we start to speak about the different schools, the different age groups, and what's needed for each school. So the truth is there's no one-size-fits-all approach to the design for these spaces. It's really more a search for the identity of a school. And you can take a room like this and turn it into something that really does empower the students. Last time I was here, I pointed out the senior study area, and I thought that's great that they've kind of identified, maybe the original design didn't work for what they thought it was going to be, and they wanted to transform that into something different. So that's the sort of thing that we would look for. Do we create a new type of space that doesn't exist now within the Media Lab that really is part of that kind of unique resource that you might find in that space. So we ask, what are the different types of learning that takes place, and then how does the space respond to those different types of learning? The images on the slide are images that we would share and talk about what's inspirational, what it really reflects the stakeholders, the things that they want to see in the space, what's really important to students, to staff, and how the school department defines the space and how it will be used. So will there be spaces for collaboration and quiet study, spaces for independent learning or group projects, resource zones, work zones? How do you take these kind of unique things that you want to bring into the school and really be able to bring people into the space to use them? So each of the Media Labs, again, is constructed in an occupied school, and we'll look for ways to find the best way to implement these with the least impact. I think in the end, it's just really an opportunity to transform some of these schools by really giving it a new center. So how do we make all this happen? RIDE's been mentioned already. RIDE Stage 2, Stage 3, something that we're going to need to get approval for, and something that's critical to the path that this takes to get Tiverton the maximum amount of reimbursement possible. RIDE defines Stage 2 as the development of a solution to the need identified in Stage 1. So on the screen's the summary of the documents that are going to be needed. Some of it's provided by the design team and some of it's provided by the Tiverton School District. But again, we'll be the leaders in this process. We'll be the ones that are uploading the documents, and we'll be the ones that are making sure that the process continues to move forward. Architectural feasibility study design plans that are required include an educational program, cost comparisons that New England CHIPS compliance documents, review with State Historic and the Governor's Commission on Disability, as well as traffic studies and energy studies. So these are the things that our team does all the time. But local support is also important as part of this process and required as part of this process. Thank you. As well as a project schedule, project justification. So that local support is really going to be critical. I mean, it's the first step. We won't get very far without getting support for the projects that we as a group decide are going to be included in that solution. Really presenting the decisions that have been made, the direction that we're going, and to the community so that they can understand the trade-offs that were required and why the direction was chosen is going to be critically important. Really heading off any misinformation, being able to summarize where we're going, where we've been, what decisions were made. Unfortunately, in these projects and processes, not everybody gets what they want, and we end up prioritizing. And it's really important to be able to make that case and get out in front of any misinformation so that our team can provide you with consistent messaging about how these projects benefit the schools, the students, and the taxpayers. So that was a lot of information. We kind of went through a bunch of stuff in a short amount of time. We even condensed it from the previous presentation, and in respect of your time. So really, the biggest takeaway that I want you to have from this is that it's all about a process. We're in it for the long haul. We're committed and excited about 21st century learning. I think that we come to work every day really trying to find new things and ways that we can improve and things that we can present as options to find out what the best thing is for your school district. And this process is one that we've done successfully. It's one that has the ability to really transform the school district. But when it's broken down into pieces, when the right consultants and the right team addresses each of those pieces, it can be a smooth process. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. There'll be time to focus on big questions about what education is and whether things are right or not. And we'll make sure that we make those deadlines and get the RIDE submissions as we go.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor to questions from the committee.
We're ready for tough questions.
What do you
No.
what do you think about virtual tutoring?
No comment.
Mrs. Palish, I'll let you go first.
And mine is actually not that hard. Can you tell me just a little bit about your experience working with councils? I mean, one of the things where we sort of stumbled before here in Tiverton was we work, certainly we lead the way. It's, there are buildings and we make the initial decisions, but we work really closely with the council as well. And so talk to me a little bit about who manages that timetable, because that's where we stumbled. We sort of all right, we had 2 weeks for us and them and it caused problems. So how you sort of step back and I know everybody's got their design expertise, but who manages the timing in that process?
So the real answer is that every community is different and every process is different. Most of the time, I will say, there is an owner's project manager that helps part of that process. But when there isn't, it's us. We manage. So what we need to do as a team, and what both of my project managers are extremely good at, is planning out the schedule and letting you know what decisions need to be made when. Hey, Christine, you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So we're working with the town of Bristol right now on 4 different projects, and they have a lot of people that need to get approval. For example, historic and zoning and planning and the state, and just a bunch of different people. So we take the schedule, we figure out what the end date is, and we work our way backwards. And then we know that you guys need things 2 weeks ahead of time, and you need to make approvals at a certain time, and we just go right down the line, and that's how we need this at this time, and we work it all out between your calendars, because you guys already have set dates for when you have meetings, and we work that all into the schedule. So we do this all the time.
So for right submissions, we have to submit a letter from the school committee and their approval process. And we constantly run into that school committee schedule. So we make sure we have your schedule ahead. We plan our efforts to give you the presentation that has all the documentation a week, 10 days ahead. So we make sure we have the information for all these deadlines and, do our puzzle to get it all right and, be on time.
You're off.
Understanding, exactly, and I think that's the communication, because we're just one piece of it, because then we have to get on another calendar, you're familiar with the planning board.
Yeah, I think,
So,
I think you might hear in that response is a little bit of lessons learned.
yeah.
But the pitfall that we all have to avoid is either I've seen it go both ways. One, where people think we won't have another chance if we approve this, we won't have another chance to weigh in on it. So we're going to withhold our approval and give ourselves extra time. And one of the things that we can communicate is, here is the process, because we're really going to come back 3 or 4 times. You're going to approve a general direction, and then we're going to go away. We're going to come back with a design, and you'll have input on that. And so at each stage, we drill down a little further, and we want to make sure that you understand that as part of that process, you don't have to make every decision at the first meeting. And once you're given approval, we'll tell you when it's a final approval and but construction is, it's a long process. Some of these projects take years. Even after we send it out to bid and even after you approve the award to a contractor, there are more changes that happen and things get adjusted. But we need to be very clear as far as when that decision needs to be made, so we can go to the council and say we have a direction that we want to present, versus when we need an approval so that we can go away and then come back to you again and you have another pass at it.
Thank you. Mrs. Farnworth?
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your patience this evening. So, just a couple of questions, and I'm looking at the questions that Dr. Sanchioni and his team had put together for the building committee portion of the interviews, and I'm sorry we weren't able to attend that day. But one of these questions stands out to me a little bit. Does your firm have the time or the capacity to take on another district? Because clearly you're involved in several.
Yeah.
Not sure what your size is overall.
So just to address that, our industry is very busy right now. It is 2 years ago, who would have thought we'd be where we are right now? I mean, it's been a crazy ride. A lot of it is the money that the federal government pumped into the system, which you have an opportunity now, and you also have a time limit to spend it, because part of putting that money in the system, they want to see it get spent. So I will say that there's probably no firm could be able to come in here and say, well, we've got nothing else to do, so we're going to do this. What I will say is we don't have any other projects that are starting right now, and as a firm, we need to have a rotation of projects. So you always have to have some starting, some in the middle, some finishing up. And the other thing I will say is that this will be a very important project to us. It is close and dear to Christine, but it also is going to be a focus, because it will be our only project that is at the beginning of a stage 2.
It's close and dear to me too.
It's close and dear to me too. I'm sorry. Yeah, I want to leave you
And I'll have
out.
to move if we don't get it right, so.
Exactly.
I just, one last question, I guess. Would you be planning to send a representative to each of our building committee meetings as we go through this process? Because they do meet separate from us. And I think having that communication line open between that building committee and us, and then bringing in the town council and other community representatives is so important to the success.
Yeah, we are certainly at the discretion of how you want to function, we're more than happy to send a representative to every committee meeting. But what I would say is it's important to really define how you want that to function in the beginning. So if that's something we want to do, that's great. We're happy to do it. Let's write it in as part of the contract, and we'll be there.
Okay, thank you.
With you? Okay. Mrs. Pavo?
I have no questions.
Mr. Dakotas?
Thank you for everything. I looked at the website. I looked at all the projects. Some really neat stuff that you're doing.
Thank you.
And I'm sure Shea High School was a nice one.
It was fun. Yeah, RT spent lots of hours on that.
That's an old building.
1920s.
Yeah.
Or early 30s. And a precast and brick building that's Art Deco that they just don't make anymore.
Yeah, I looked at what it looks like, and but some phenomenal work, and so thank you, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Actually, they asked my questions, so thank you for coming, and look forward to working with you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Enjoyed that long ride home. It's a nice part, right?
So I don't know if Peter's bringing in another group, or I thought he was, but
Probably made him wait because they didn't want to
yeah.
their presentation.
Yeah, if anybody
Is
wants.
that this one?
So this is the one that's coming up.
So we don't have one from him? From them?
Yeah.
I didn't get.
This is the one.
You guys got an electronic version of something, right?
Okay, so that's yours. So that's Brewster Thornton. And that's Rouse. Did you get him, Mike?
Did you get
I
anything electronically? Because I didn't get, because I get a.
did you get him, Deb? I know Diane did.
We did online.
We did online.
You did online. Okay, all right.
Did you go to the building committee?
No. Work has been nuts.
Are we on a break?
I was just gonna say we could recess
No, I can
if,
see him, he's got him.
Okay.
if people need to
They probably
take
were
a
sitting,
break.
they probably decided, so where,
They're all talking about bricks with each other.
Bricks.
Huh?
Bricks.
Yeah. Yeah, architects talk about bricks.
Gotta report those bricks.
I-beams.
corners, like corners.
Corners.
Corner miters.
Double hip roofs. All that dirty stuff.
Hello. Good, how are you? Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Peter, you want to introduce?
Again, as you heard me mention, we had two firms be named finalists through the building committee. We're fortunate tonight to have Rouse Architects here with you. I'll let them introduce them to you and get on with their presentation. Welcome.
Great, thank you. So I'm Brittany Grant. I'm a senior project architect at Rouse Architects.
I'm Jim Partridge. I am also a project architect and been working with Rouse Architects for 20 years. Excuse me.
So Rouse Architects, we are a Rhode Island-based firm. We've been up and running for over 35 years, and we've had a large focus in the educational sector. We work on projects that range from house doctor, capital improvements projects, roofs, building envelopes, finishes, through to multi-million-dollar new construction projects. So we run the gambit on that. We as a firm, make our client relationships a top priority. We are someone who will, the person on the project day one will be with you from start to beginning. So we really build that client relationship. It's just a firm practice of ours. So if you could go back one slide. I'm Brittany. I would be your day-to-day point of contact, the main project architect leading through the design and through the ride submission.
I will be primarily assisting Brittany in the project, but I would be involved with the ride submission aspect of the project in terms of getting the application in order so that we can submit it to RIDE, set up some preliminary meetings with RIDE before we actually submit the application. We've been practicing that recently with a lot of other districts that we've worked with, and it seems to have helped the process in terms of giving RIDE an idea of sort of what we're planning to put in our application, even though they have their own checklist. But sometimes there's some dialogue between our team and RIDE's team in terms of sort of some approaches relative to, it could be as simple as New England ship standards to space standards, a lot of different things that may be helpful for them to understand before they actually see the documents that we put together and submit to RIDE for approval.
But to jump back to our design team, we've pulled together an excellent group of consultants that we've worked with on several RIDE submissions, several educational projects. Building Engineering Resources is our MEP consultant. We've had great success working with them. They're familiar with how the RIDE process goes, and because we've worked with them on other RIDE submissions, we feel we're able to fast track our work together because we know how they work, they know how we work, and how our process would run.
Right. It really comes down to expectations relative to what they have to do and what we have to do. We sort of come together to kind of make it all work and be cohesive relative to the application pieces that have to be generated.
So just to jump into some of our design experience examples.
So this is Johnson and Wales.
So can I just interrupt for a second? If you guys could try and use the mic, because this does get recorded and posted online, so might help.
Up on the screen is the John Bowen Academic Building. This is a facility, it's a brand new facility that we built in downtown Providence. It's an academic facility that includes a lot of different types of lab spaces, for physical sciences to robotics, which is kind of shown in the lower right-hand corner of the image up there. There's some physical science laboratories as well that we created. Some of it's anatomy, some of it is just biology and physics. And then we also have, along the streetscape of downtown Providence, it's sort of a showcase of what the students put together relative to some of their projects, so they are actually being transparent to the other representatives within the campus vernacular, so they can all sort of share on what's being produced in this particular facility. And it also links different areas of the campus, so it's a very transparent building that you can actually see right through the building to see what's on the other side of the building in terms of operations or other academic facilities. The two representative schools that are up right now, there are two brand new high schools that we actually were involved with in downtown Providence. Both facilities were designed for 9 through 12, each with a 900 student capacity, with obviously all of the bells and whistles that a high school would include, including gymnasium, science classrooms, core classrooms, nurses areas, and obviously administration. So just a sample of what we've done for new construction.
So this example is the Met School. This is also located in Providence, and we worked with RIDE from the beginning on this project. It's a 4-building campus for a high school, but it's more of a trade focus. There's different sorts of programs with culinary. There's the Black Box Theater where they work with kind of performance settings we incorporated. a large fitness facility. So they have a state-of-the-art gymnasium with an attached fitness center and up-to-date locker rooms. It's actually really cool. They have a rock wall in the space so that the students are able to really be active in the space, but then the local police department also uses the area. So it was a really cool collaboration with the community. They have the commercial kitchen that the community also comes in and uses, but it's for their culinary program. And there's also a TV station and radio station. So it was really about developing kids the skills they already had to help them for their future. This project is the NEEP. It stands for the National Elevator Industry Educational Program. This was a complete gut and renovate educational center in Warwick. The organization, we used to go around the country and teach all people who worked in the elevator trade. Everyone would have to take their certification classes, their safety classes, taught by this group. They decided they wanted to have a central hub in Warwick, right near the airport. So they're bringing people from across the country into our area to have their education and training. This space, we were able to put a new exterior skin on the building. It was an existing CMU brick block wall construction. We have a lecture hall that is tiered and seats 250 people with state-of-the-art technology, as well as several classroom spaces, a maker space for their CNC and 3D printer, and an augmented reality, virtual reality room. So they're able to actually do the classes that it's cool. They work on how they would put together pieces within the elevator safely, but in their virtual reality room. So that was a very rewarding project. It's over 100,000 square feet, so it was a large undertaking that it was completed on time and under budget during the height of COVID. So that was a real win for everyone. And then this is an example of a building that was built in the 1940s, 1950s that we are currently finishing the construction on renovating the entire interior. We did a complete asbestos abatement of the building, got rid of any toxic materials, hazardous materials, and are transforming it into their education center.
This is the West Warwick Middle School, where we actually were hired to provide a pilot program for 21st learning environments. So we literally took 4 or 5 classrooms for 5th graders and opened it up so that we could provide a flexible space so that teachers could actually work in groups with 100 kids in this space and be able to establish environments that would be conducive to the type of teaching that is going to be used in today's world versus the old way of traditional lecture type spaces. So we took down a lot of walls and opened it up. We included what they call a wet messy area, which is basically sort of like a science classroom where you can actually work in groups, work on projects, but at the same time it can be converted very easily into sort of a lecture space, even though it's still considered a science type of classroom environment, the area. There's also a presentation area where all of the kids in this space can actually gather and be involved with presentations from other work groups as far as what they're doing. And on the perimeter of the space, we created nooks and areas for kids to be able to work off to the side together versus working in a larger type of group, and then come in after they fulfilled their group work as couple or 3 or 4 kids to interact with the rest of the other groups to be able to establish some learning habits and some learning ideas from each other. So it's kind of a really intuitive type of space where things change on the dime continuously. And we also opened up the corridor to create a glass wall so that we can introduce what's happening in that space to get some transparency to the other students that would be coming into that space eventually, or kids that have not made that fifth grade, and they're a little bit older, but they're inviting the sixth graders to work with the fifth graders. So there is an intermingle of different grade groups, too, that are using this space.
So to jump more into specifically our ride experience.
So we'll be involved, obviously, working with the RIDE School Building Authority in terms of putting together our RIDE package. And obviously, we would have to work with them in terms of sort of the goals that were set, and also work with them in terms of what we actually see in the school district as far as some deficiencies and areas that should be improved just as a whole, relative to, it could be the building envelope, it could be lighting, HVAC systems, but more importantly, we'd also be looking for some ideas relative to areas that we could maybe transform into sort of a modern environment with respect to what we were doing in West Warwick, and probably give some ideas in terms of how we can take a space and transform that space into something that's a little bit different than what was the intended use back in the day when the building was first built.
Yeah. So we have a very thorough understanding of the RIDE submission process, the February 15th deadline, and we're prepared to put that package together. From there, we're well versed in the RIDE stage 3 and 4 submissions as well, the construction documents and then the construction administration. And overall, we've had over 22 years of experience working with RIDE on several different school districts. The Pawtucket, North Kingston, West Warwick, Smithfield recently.
Right. And these are just a couple of snapshots. The one on the left is North Kingston. We're just finishing up right now a 5-year capital plan with them that started in 2018, that actually went through the COVID process, and it involved looking at all of their buildings, obviously. Like this particular building here is their high school. When that was originally built, it was never really commissioned the way it should have been, so we actually went through the entire school and brought the systems of the building up to where they should be when the building was first built. By virtue of not commissioning it then, it raised certain flags relative to some of the system operations of the building. So we had to kind of go through it systematically, step by step, over a few years to get it to where it should be when it was originally built, that it didn't, as a for instance. In West Warwick, obviously we're dealing with the existing buildings where we're trying to transform and provide some creative ideas in terms of thinking outside the box in terms of utilizing space, but maybe we'll introduce some small additions to kind of complement what they're trying to do relative to media centers. Instead of creating libraries, media centers become group space learning centers, things of that nature.
And some of the more specific projects that we've completed as part of that stage 3 and 4 were the addition of air conditioning to the North Kingston High School, an addition of their robotics lab, kind of transforming one of their existing spaces, several roof replacements throughout the district, finishes on the inside of the buildings, flooring. In West Warwick, we're working on window replacements, the pilot learning center that Jim has talked about, and other roof replacements, finishes on the interior.
And one of the things at North Kingston, we took an elementary school that was built in the early 60s, and we actually transformed it into an alternative learning center for special needs programs. So it actually is a collaboration of some of the students have severe needs, requirements in terms of mobility, and we're having them actually learning in an environment with other students that may not have the severe needs issues, so they can collaborate on their level, but it's a facility that's just geared to a special needs scenario for kindergarten through 5th grade.
So to jump back into your project and how we can work with you to make this deadline. This is just an initial schedule that would have to be nailed down with the building committee and the school committee. But A top priority would be setting up a schedule early on. This will mark out all of the major milestones, any important meetings and decision deadlines. And this would be able to keep us on track to make sure we meet that February 15th deadline. We're prepared to hit the ground running and go through the schools, start our field investigation, take out the existing conditions, and work from there to complete the stage 2.
And then also, obviously, meet with the stakeholders of the school department to determine sort of what's going to be part of their capital improvements plan in terms of whether that is fixing up a building, or are we talking about maybe some consolidation, or redoing some of the buildings to create areas for the 21st learning century atmosphere of teaching.
So from a broad perspective, how we approach the schematic design early stages of the project. We work with the stakeholders to determine the programs needed and the priorities of the stakeholders. Then we move to client workshops. We've done this in the past where if the program needs require reworking an existing space or even a new building, we'll cut out the programmatic needs in terms of little actual pieces, work with the stakeholders, and then we can see it visually. We can move around some pieces, see where we can get different programmatic elements to fit together. And we found that to be very beneficial because the perspective of the people that use the building and find smaller caveats to the ins and outs of the building, the input is very valuable to get the building to be what everyone wants it to be at the end.
And it allows us to look at 3 or 4 options rather than just one option. And sometimes when you go through that process of design, you may take a little bit of each option to actually create the final solution. So it gives you an idea of sort of what we can do, but does it actually meet the intent of what the actual program that you're trying to achieve for the teaching part of things.
And from there, we hold internal meetings as well, where we have all of our design staff meet together and review the design to make sure their perspectives don't have any past experiences that point out, oh, maybe you should move that door, or rearrange this program element. But we take into account a lot of opinions and perspectives to make sure we're producing the most successful solution. And then internally, this is more stage 3 and 4, but we're big on printing check sets internally, redlining the drawings to make sure we're picking up any sort of work between one drawing, elevations, floor plans of the building, working with our consultants' plans to make sure everyone's dancing off the same sheet of music. We find that coordination early on helps head off any potential change orders once you move into construction, for sure. So we would love the opportunity to work with the Tiverton School Department. We've worked with several school departments, would be new to Tiverton, but we enjoy the experience of working with new school districts, gaining all of the information that you have from your experiences. One thing we talked about at the last meeting was that we really value the learning process. So while you're learning, we're learning as well, and how we can further develop the schools and move forward into more 21st century, more modern school design.
And obviously, we can at least offer experiences working with other districts on how they came up with certain things that may be similar to the items that you're trying to achieve in your district. So being able to work with a lot of different school districts offers us the opportunity to be able to go through certain design protocols or hurdles, and how we came up with solutions to achieve something that may be desirable in your district. You know, those kind of opportunities we can share, obviously, with you during the RIDE Stage 2 process.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open up the floor to questions from the committee. Mrs. Pava.
No questions.
Okay, Mr. Dakotas?
I don't have any specific questions. I was looking at everything while you were speaking, so you have a wealth of experience, to say the least. So, thank you. I appreciate it. In the essence of time, I don't want to ask a lot of questions, but I was listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Farnworth.
You answered most of the questions I was anticipating, so thank you for doing that. I do want to compliment you, and it does appear that you've got a good depth of renovation experience, and certainly that's what we are contemplating here. So it's good to know that, good to see your experience, particularly with RIDE, and certainly the number of years that you've been out there. I don't have any specific questions for you at this time. Like I said, you've answered pretty much everything I was anticipating.
Great.
Mrs. Palish.
So one of the places we've stumbled in the past is while our school department certainly drives the process, the 5-year plan, et cetera, our town council is also very linked and very involved. And so sometimes those timelines can get really tight, especially when you're dealing with 2 different boards. So what kind of experience do you have working with boards beyond the school department?
Well, in North Kingston, the town council was very involved with their school programs. So obviously, one of the things that they were considering it was, we want to make sure we're not chewing up more than we can handle relative to the financial side of things. So we had to obviously showcase in their arena in terms of presenting what we're actually trying to do. We realized that we could come up with a list of things that you could do over time, but maybe not necessarily in the first 5-year program. But keep in mind that we've actually created a good database to provide you to move forward, that knowing that you may not be able to afford to do all of it. So with those kind of dialogue relative to sort of how we're approaching our projects, we do realize that we're not trying to impose additional cost to the district or to the community, but we're trying to serve the district so that we're giving them the best bang for the buck that they want to spend. So usually having sort of just a townhouse discussion relative to boards like a town council or a city council kind of goes a long way to kind of put things at ease. And we've also had done certain like townhouse situations where we'll actually present, say, at the high school auditorium, where the public can come in and actually review some of the things that they've seen that have been posted on the school website, to be able to discuss their concerns or some of their questions a little bit further, so they have a better understanding of what we're trying to do. So it really comes down to transparency and trying to communicate the ideas that we're trying to approach, working as a collective.
Just as a follow-up on Deb's question, so one of the issues has been this sort of rather, ridge is not quite the word, but the fact that you're up against deadlines in September and February. We have to observe open meetings laws that the council has, and we've all got a lot of other stuff. So who helps coordinate, who owns that kind of sequencing? Is it the district? Is it you guys? Is it a single person?
Obviously, we would be sort of working with the district, but in terms of who would be coordinating that, I would say we'd always kind of work for the district, but obviously if there is a city council component, we would certainly welcome the idea of having separate meetings or collective meetings going on while we're still doing the process.
And one thing that I think would be helpful is if we can schedule those meetings, as far out as we need to, just to make sure that we have those milestones nailed down as much as we can, because there are obviously things have to be flexible.
Right.
But if we nail those down as far ahead of time as we can, then we can still keep moving forward and reach those deadlines.
And still meet the end deadline of
Right.
February 15 and not having to wait until the following September, which.
Yeah, RIDE's given us some latitude there, but I don't know how long that will last.
True.
And
Absolutely true.
I think one of the issues has been not only just bringing the school committee along, but also bringing the town council along. And so I think meeting with them is an important component of this,
Absolutely.
before January.
Yep, and that's
Well,
something.
maybe January would be okay, but when you suddenly realize in January, oh my goodness, there's all these meetings that have to happen, and we have open meetings laws and other stuff to get to February 15th, it can be tricky.
And I think, so what I was getting at with the scheduling is that we can work with you to let you know ahead of time, you know, what type of review meetings we will need to make sure we're staying on track. So that, you know, they're not left in the dark and realize it's the end of January and we need to schedule that meeting.
Right.
Yeah, and so we would let you know what we would need to keep on moving forward and work together.
Does your firm have parallel experience or expertise in sort of more municipal type buildings, like?
Yes, yep. We did the Coventry Police and Human Services building, so that was with a big building committee with community members. Jim can speak to that.
With two different factions. One is, you know, human services, and they're really tailored to accommodate the older generation of the community. But at the same time, we had to make sure that we had certain barriers that kind of separated both uses, even though they're sharing the same building. So we had to strategically kind of locate things that a police operation, but it's also a police operation that would accommodate public, but it's the general public, versus human services, which deal with, you know, they have bingo, and the community actually in some cases comes to them to inhabit their side of the space. So we had to come up with a way from site to building that's got two different literally departments for the community. It was sort of a challenge, but at the same time, we were sitting down with both factions, sometimes independent from one another, but at the same time, we also brought both factions together because one had to help the other to be able to accomplish what they were trying to achieve for their side of the building, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, it does.
and we actually sat down with stakeholders that really weren't involved with the building, but they were involved with the community. So they wanted to make sure that what they were representing was sort of clear to them in their mind relative to how we were going to approach putting the building together.
So I expect you're familiar with where we are with our stage one and sort of renovation projects that have occurred over the last really 7 or 8 years at this point. Do you anticipate any issues either with your firm being able to handle the work or with our sort of needing to get through this process to get to stage 2 on February 15th at this point, or?
I mean, Brittany and I will be sort of working as a team all the way through this process. So obviously we have people that are sort of serving what we need to get done, whether it's drawings or literature or whatever is necessary to be able to get the point across to your side of things to make sure that we're on the right track.
And in terms of scheduling, the timing works out well with our office. Personally, a lot of the projects that I've been project managing, they're wrapping up their construction phase, and I haven't been slated to a specific project yet. So the timing would work out really well, that this would be my main focus.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else with any other questions? Mr. Farley?
No, nothing,
Yeah, I
thank
forgot
you.
last time. I don't know why. I spent a lot of my life trying to forget you. Okay, so where's the junior, by the way?
Be nice.
There was only one representative elected this year.
But isn't there supposed to be a junior? Anyway. Yeah. All right, so. I'm not attacking. I'm not attacking one of the students. I'm attacking my child. So, well, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What is the time frame in terms of making the selection?
I'll talk to you on the way out.
Okay.
About
Thank
10
you
minutes
very
from now?
much. Thanks to you.
Not even. So, does anyone care to recess? Or you want to wait for Peter to come back?
Oh, we can start, because I have some questions you might be able to answer, or maybe
Maybe we'll get the door first.
Yeah, we're still in that session. Amy, did the building committee rank them at all? They you know? Or did they just say, here's two great candidates?
So what everyone did was, is everyone had the questionnaire that Diane had, and everyone came up with their own sort of rank for what it was, and then we spoke communally, and we were all pretty much on the same page for these two firms.
So was one ranked above the other, or you didn't do that at this point?
We did not do that formally. We use that as an individual tool for people to make notes and to score and so forth. But yeah, they were 1 and 2, almost unanimously.
Just to know if they said, well, this one, and if we don't like this one, you should take this.
Yeah, I was not able to attend, but,
I was there.
Yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
asked.
yeah,
So it
but
wasn't, hey, take this one, but if they don't want this one, it was no, these are both. Cool.
These are the two that we agreed to put forward out of the 3 that were interviewed.
and I believe it was that they were close to each other. I
Correct.
think there was a bit of a preference for the second ones tonight.
Correct.
Did you know that from any kind of official report that we're going to get?
Well, I'm waiting for Peter to come back and
Okay.
sort of see how he wants to proceed by making a formal recommendation. There was.
My question while you were gone, Peter, to Amy, and she was very helpful, was just, kind of how you came up with these two. And Amy sort of went through that process for me.
So I don't know if, Peter, you want to make a formal recommendation to the committee and then we can debate it further, or we just want to open up for discussion without necessarily having a motion?
It's getting kind of late.
On the electricity and natural gas? Yeah.
No, we're on,
Are we looking to make a decision
Oh,
tonight?
the architect.
Do you have a recommendation?
my understanding was we were making a decision tonight.
You're certainly welcome to.
Yeah.
I was still in the process of reference checking them.
Well, that was a question that I
Yeah.
definitely had for you.
My timeline was it would be at your next meeting, and so it'd give you time to, digest what you
I only
heard.
worry that we're already so tight.
Yeah, myself.
Can we ask other questions?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So let's open it up for
let's
discussion
open it up.
Yeah.
without a motion. So I'll let you go first.
No, aside from the reference checks, which, thank you, I was wondering how that would happen. The other question I had was, did you, by chance, gather any of the input that you received from the building committee? I was a little hoping we would have some of them here tonight to perhaps have a discussion.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone who was part of the building committee interviews, and I sent you the names, everyone was there, rated all the
Right.
firms, so I had that data. And we certainly deliberated when all the interviews were completed, too. So I think indirectly, you asked me who the building committee came up as.
No, that's not my question. I mean,
Okay.
certainly we'll probably want to know that, but do you have any kind of feedback from them around specific questions that, would be helpful to us as we try to deliberate?
Or did they answer
Yeah.
them all?
So I can share with you, the two firms that are here tonight are here because of what you saw. There was no concerns with either one of those firms. They could both, the deliberations were just, you can't go wrong at this point. You have two experienced firms who know the SBA process, who've been through it, who at least articulate the fact that they have the ability to work with Tiverton immediately and get us to that February 15th deadline. So it was a very positive discussion. I mean,
Okay. That was the only question I really
Okay.
had, just kind of trying to bridge that gap
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
us and the building committee, because we really haven't seen any specific feedback from them.
Yep. Molly?
The only question I have is, this firm mentioned that they do a lot of, seem to do more renovation projects than brand-new building projects. Do you agree with that? Did you
I
get that
think
sense?
both firms had a blend, and they're probably trying to just go through their highlights, but I
Okay.
think they both
Okay.
demonstrated they had new construction and both did renovations, and certainly we're interested in the renovations part of it.
That's the only thing I had thinking
Okay.
about.
Mike, anything else? Do you have anything else?
I do want to say that in preparation for the meeting, I did, as I always do, Googled both firms, looked for local articles, any kind of minutes from a council meeting or anything. I found nothing negative. They both seem to be highly regarded in the industry. Both have received numerous awards in their, respective areas, numerous. So I think Peter's right. I'm not sure we can go wrong.
So I guess
So
the
how do you
question is,
decide?
does the committee want to make a decision tonight or not? I'm sort of have the same concern as Deb does of if we, and, we can talk about this later as well, if we don't meet till the 29th, we're losing another 2 weeks.
That's my problem. Yeah, and if they're both good, I'd pick one.
And I guess I have a little bit of a preference already, too.
I still would like to hear, though, that, Peter, you've spoken with some of their current clients.
I'm in the
as
process
to
right
their
now.
experiences.
Yep. I wanted to get 3 reference checks on each firm. At this point, I have 1 on each firm, and they were both outstanding. And they were both public school districts in Rhode Island that I spoke to. I spoke to the superintendent.
Good. That's
Well,
important.
yeah, Rouse has 2 in here from Newport and North Kingstown.
And they did work.
Recommendations.
Did work from North Smithfield. That's why I got a chance
Yeah,
to
they
check.
did. North Smithfield, they had some news articles on.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just not sure that those additional references are going to tell us anything more than we already know.
Yeah.
I would concur. I think you're just going to hear more that they've done an excellent job. I mean, they wouldn't.
So I guess I'm going to go through the process then. I'm going to make a motion to make the decision tonight, so we can vote on whether or not we make the decision tonight. Would anyone like to second that?
I'll second it.
We're voting to decide to make a decision. Okay,
Right.
okay.
So, any further discussion?
No, thank you.
Then I'm going to take a vote on whether or not we make the decision. This is the way we have to do it. It's democracy. I can't find another 10,000 votes in Georgia or whatever it was. Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mrs. Barnworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Palish?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we are going to make the decision tonight. I'll entertain any motion someone would like to make with regard to hiring one firm or the other.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to hire Brewster Thornton Group Architects for Tiverton Public Schools architect.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll open up to discussion. Mrs. Palish?
I liked them both. If somebody can tell me why they like these guys better than the other group, I'm all ears. I liked them both.
Okay.
Why do you recommend these guys, Mike?
Well,
If you don't
two
mind
things
me
come to
asking.
mind. I like that he said we need something now to put into our pipeline. We're ready to do this now. And secondly, I'm not going to lie, I like that someone's from Tiverton. They're right here. I feel like they're going to be here at the building committee meetings. That's a big plus for me. We're a small town, they're right here.
Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Diane?
I think all things being equal, well, then, no, not all things are equal, ever. But, to Mike's point, and I hate to say it, right, but having someone who lives here engaged with this firm, with us, is critical. That's something that, it's an advantage that they have, maybe unfairly so. I was also very, very impressed with, and I am going to butcher her name, and I wrote it down so I could try to pronounce it well.
The second gal.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Artie Katura.
Yeah, that's the second gal. I call her the second gal. but-
Well, she would be our primary point of contact, and I was taking a look through the backup documents. She's an MIT grad. Something I could never aspire to. And I was, again, in all fairness, right, both groups did a commendable job with their presentation, but if we're being pushed this evening to do this out of, the need for speed, and I understand it, that's why I immediately seconded Mike's motion.
Okay, Elaine?
I'm in agreement with both of them, and for me, one of the things that I based my decision on is that personally, that group, that team, excited me more than the second team. I felt like they were more energetic. They seemed more excited about the project. I thought the second team, it was just, she was pretty good, but the first team, I felt was more excited about it. And I didn't know if there was much difference in the size of those two architectural firms. I don't know. We don't know. I never asked the question, but I go along with them. I think that would be the best fit for us. And having the girl in Tiverton, as long as she doesn't move out after she's here a while.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say something, but I forget what it was. Yeah, I agree. They both had very good presentations, and I don't think we could go wrong with either one of them. Peter, any thoughts?
Deb, did you speak?
I'm sorry. I said I really liked them both, so I'll, if you guys feel strong one way or the other, I'll go with it, because I thought they were both excellent, and I think you made some excellent points, so I'm fully on board.
Yeah, the points made are certainly very valid tonight, and again, it's just going to be repetitive, but you got two high-quality firms. I mean, you really do, and it's a hard choice to make, and I think you're leaning in the right direction.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Is there any sense for what the cost difference might be between the two? Understanding that that wasn't part of the bid?
Yeah, we didn't ask those questions. When technically, they're not allowed to ask that question.
Okay. I asked.
Yeah, I think they're all going to be in the same ballpark. They know the work.
Okay.
Prevailing wage.
Yeah, well.
I'll just give you a rough estimate. A lot.
The only thing that I would say, echoing the points of the rest of the committee, admittedly, a lot of stuff went over my head, but the fact that the first group had someone, again, so close in Tiverton, and they directly said that they were willing to send a representative to every building committee meeting, I think that's significant. Granted, the second group said, oh, they have experience deliberating, which is a fair point, but the fact that they're committing and willing to put into contract that they're going to send a representative, I mean, I don't know. That just stood out to me.
Okay.
That's actually a really good point, though, that we
is a
should
good
think
point.
about if we want that in a contract. And, I don't know, maybe it's more important that they're actually there than here even in some ways. I mean, not that I want to be excluded, but I think the building committee drives a lot of it. But it's a good point, Scott.
You're on point tonight.
You're doing good.
Did Peter have an opinion?
There's an election.
He's not sharing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just think you can't go wrong. I think you're trending in the right direction, and again, based on the calls I made today, it's just I would be thrilled to work with either one of them.
Okay, so the motion is to go with Brewster Thornton. I'll ask for a vote unless there's any other discussion. Hearing none. Mrs. Palish?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right. It's 9:33.
I
So
think
we're
town
up-
council went to 11 last night, so watch out.
Oh, God. We're up to item 5D, electricity and natural gas contract pricing. Ms. Roderick?
Can I, just before, and Amy, this is not your fault. I understand the Friday was a weekend, but I want to admit that I did not have a chance to look at the package, and Amy did a great job putting it together. I don't know if anyone else is in the same boat, but if you are, I'm going to make a motion to continue. Is it of urgent is it urgent? Oh, never mind.
If I could, I'm happy to do whatever the committee wishes, but there is a time sensitivity, and I'll explain, I'll
Okay.
keep my
All right, go
explanation
ahead,
really
then.
brief.
All right, go ahead.
The executive summary is we contracted out prior to my arrival with both Direct Energy / NRG for natural gas and for Constellation for electricity. Those were through cooperative or joint purchasing agreements. The gas was through the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, and as far as I can piece together, Constellation at the time was through, I don't want to say,
League of Cities and Towns?
it is through the League of Cities and Towns, but I'm not sure. I wasn't able to confirm that with the former business manager, but he thought so at the time. And so he couldn't quite remember the specific details as to why we weren't with Direct Energy for both at the time. Presently, Direct Energy is on the MPA list for both electricity and gas, as well as for the joint purchasing agreement through the Rhode Island Association, the school committee, RIASC. And so with that, what happens is even though they contract as a preferred vendor, the pricing for those both commodities is daily. So the price will change daily. If we wait to continue, we'll be waiting for the pricing for like another 2 weeks or so. And the prices are only good until 5 p.m. that day. So the ones that I've provided you there were as of today. They will be different tomorrow. Could be higher, could be lower. One of the items that I put in your package was sort of like a market analysis from Constellation Energy, which focused on natural gas for electricity. And the reason that is in New England, the vast majority of our electricity in New England is through the burning of liquefied natural gas. And so it basically comes up on a barge from Pennsylvania, and then it gets brought into New England. So our electricity cost is directly tied to natural gas cost. In terms of the market analysis, last week when I was speaking with Constellation, energy prices for natural gas were at the lowest point since March, and they have now started to tick up, but nowhere near what they were back in March. So to that, we are able to contract with Direct Energy for both natural gas and or electricity, and Constellation only does electricity. I asked if they did natural gas, and they said no. So we would be able to contract with Direct Energy for up to 3 years, and obviously if we contract out for 3 years, we get the lowest price. In Constellation, we could do up to 5 years, which is what the previous contract was. I have asked Direct Energy to give us electricity pricing, and I'm waiting on that. So the point of me coming before you today is to request authorization to contract with one or both of these entities in order to get the best possible pricing for the foreseeable future for both electricity and natural gas. And I will leave it at that and let you ask questions, and then I can add more if you'd like some more information.
So I guess, Deb, do you still want to proceed with the motion to continue?
No, let's go ahead, we can go ahead and have discussion, and if people aren't comfortable afterwards, then we can, maybe consider that, but.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for a motion to allow Ms. Roderick to go through with that contracting.
I'll make that motion.
Are we going to put a time, like up to 3 years, up to 5 years? You going to put any kind of time delineation on that?
We can't sign a contract longer than 3 years, right?
Well, Constellation allows for 5.
5 years, yeah.
Well,
And
I
if
think
we
I
signed it
said 5
before,
years.
We
I
can't
thought by
enter into
statute-
employee contracts.
Oh, I thought it was all contracts. All right.
We signed a 20-year deal with a solar
good
company or wind company.
so I guess that's part of the question then is do we want to put a time to limit, if we do allow Ms. Roderick to go ahead and sign something, do we want to put a no more than 3 years on it or any, do you feel like that would hamstring you, Amy? to a
Yes,
degree?
yes and no. The reason being, so I did inquire of both Constellation and Direct Energy. I'm like, well, what happens if the price goes down below what we've contracted for? Both companies have what they call a blend and extend program, where basically they have your current rate, and then they will also have you contract for a lower rate, and you'll pay the difference for the duration of the original contract.
And
then
an
you'll
extension.
and then you'll get the lower rate for the remainder of that second contract. So they both have that option. However, in both cases, contracting with one or both companies is in our best interest. For example, Direct Energy, our contract with them expired in April, but I was not made aware of that until October from Direct Energy. So we are now paying what's called the floating rate of $9.32 per decatherm, whereas if we contracted, it would be roughly $7.57 per decatherm. In terms of Constellation, obviously, the prices are now almost doubled what we were originally contracted for through the end of, the contracts for Constellation go through the end of this month and the middle of December, depending on which account it is. So obviously, things have gone up considerably. If we go for only 3 years with Constellation, obviously the kilowatt per hour price is slightly higher than what it would be for 5 years. And again, these prices change daily. They're only good until 5 p.m. So what I'm trying to do is definitely, if we wait, as we get into the winter, the prices are absolutely going to go up, obviously because of demand and things like that. And also, and I won't get into the details, but the logistics of how liquefied natural gas is purchased. It goes to like residential heating first, and if there's anything left over, it goes to the generation of electricity. So if there is a supply issue or a demand issue, the price will go up again as well. So that's what I mean by when I say there's like a time sensitivity to this. Again, we can always certainly wait, but I would bet dollars to donuts that if we waited until after the first of the year or even another month, the price would be higher.
So, Elaine, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Thank you.
Sorry.
What was your motion? Did you make a motion?
It was to allow Amy to authorize her to choose either or both.
Execute the contract.
Yeah.
And do you want to, I would recommend that you put for up to 5 years in the motion.
Can you go less than 3 years?
We can. There's one for electricity, natural gas, we can go up to 3 years. Those are the respective prices for a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract, 3-year contract for Direct Energy, natural gas, and then Constellation is 1 through 5 years, depending on.
That's like playing the lottery. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the question. A couple years ago, oil was like $1.80 a gallon. Now it's $5.50. So depending on when you locked in, So not always longer is better sometimes.
I agree with Mike on that, actually. Yeah. We're at historical highs.
Right, we're in a high.
We're
I'm
actually
very
not,
afraid.
We are not at historical highs.
Really?
If you look at the market analysis Constellation provided us, that's what I was saying. We're lower than we were in March. We're at the lowest point, I think like a week or so ago, since March of 2022. So,
But we're probably in an astronomically high year.
Absolutely.
For a year.
Absolutely.
So 2020, 2021.
Absolutely.
Was a lot lower.
Yes.
So my point is, we bought a used car last year. Shame on us.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
You're noting that Constellation, we're currently paying .0719.
Right, that's the current contract that was signed 5 years ago that will expire. Part of it will expire at the end of this month and the rest in the middle of December. That was signed prior to me.
Okay.
2015.
Thank you. I didn't.
2017, yeah.
17.
Okay.
Okay, so actually the motion's only been made but not yet seconded, and I don't know, Elaine, do you want to add a time component to it, up to 3 years, up to 5 years?
I'd like to go with up to 3 years.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is to authorize Ms. Roderick to execute these contracts for up to 3 years. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any additional discussion? Mrs. Palish?
I'm just thinking about Mike's comment about, and Diane, about, do we even want 3? Wow, it's tough. Because it could.
It is, yeah.
It is,
I think it's
could go
completely
down.
unpredictable.
It
Otherwise,
is so
you know.
unpredictable, but you did say they have something where if it goes down, you get
It's called the
kind of-
blend and extend, where basically they take the two and you pay the difference, or you pay sort of like the middle price.
Is that only for, can you do a blend and extend if you do 2 years, or is that only if you do like 3 or more?
So for Constellation, you have to have the negotiated rate for 1 year, and then you can negotiate a blend and extend for the remainder of your existing contract. For Direct Energy, you can do a blend and extend after 6 months, but not if there is only 6 months remaining on your contract, which kind of makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yep. And for natural gas, and I'm going to presume the same for the electricity when I get it from Energy or Direct Energy, that's up to, all they will do is 3 years. They will not even go for 5 years. So that was only the Constellation. So Constellation was the electricity, and I think our previous 2 contracts were for 5 years each.
But you can do a blend, like you said, you
Yep.
can do a
Blend and
Constellation for 3,
Blend and extend.
depending upon what the rates are. Okay. I don't know, it's playing the market.
Yeah. Probably if we knew what was going to happen, we'd be buying stock.
Exactly.
I was going to say, or the lottery, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mrs. Farnworth?
So natural gas is in how many of our facilities? Is it just one?
Natural gas is in 2,
Ranger and Pecasset?
Pecasset and Fort Barton.
I got one right.
I mean, Main Road tank. Oh, no, it's more.
Well, I was thinking Ranger because they're close to the line over here. So the rest of the 3 of the 5 schools, the two big ones in particular are oil heat.
Fuel oil, yep.
So that's a whole different contract that we've already
Yep.
agreed to.
Yep.
So and, you know, we're by far the biggest, probably single user in the town of these utilities right now. Has, no, we have 5 buildings.
And we actually, for electricity, we actually have 8 accounts, like different light poles and security systems and so on and so forth. So for electricity, we use approximately 2.154 million kilowatts per hour in total.
Per hour?
Kilowatts per hour in total.
So Amy, if
Can I
you,
continue?
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Sorry, no. So it begs the question, that the solar contract that we're hoping someday to get benefit from, will that be able to be used?
Yes.
With these companies
Yes.
as well?
Yeah.
Yes. Because that is, so it all goes through, so both Direct Energy and Constellation are the suppliers. The delivery
goes through the other guys.
So for electricity, the delivery goes through Rhode Island Energy, which is where we would get the net metering credits from.
Okay.
It'd sort of be like a building block of pieces to our bill. Direct Energy for the natural gas is a direct bill from them. And presumably if we were to contract with Direct Energy for electricity, they would still be the supplier, and that would go through Rhode Island Energy as the delivery and servicer type of thing. So I learned more about utilities than I ever thought I needed to know.
No, it's great. Thank you. 'Cause
Just got a bill. And
we don't know
paid
it, so.
Yeah, and it, and I also wanted to just so for your edification, also why some of the information was late. I wanted to piece together, how we were covered for procurement as a member of RIASC or the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns. I wanted to make sure we were in compliance with purchasing guidelines, and that took me a little bit to sort out. So as members of both of those, granted the town is a member of the Rhode Island League, we are still part of that, so we are able to benefit as being from members from both of those groups.
Good. I yield.
That was her last point was actually my question, where I asked Rhode Island League.
And again, currently, again, when I spoke with the previous business manager, his district uses strictly direct energy for gas and electricity. And that's why I asked him to price out the electricity for us. But we also, as a member of the Rhode Island League, can opt for Constellation. And so what I basically was going to say was, you know, compare the two prices, and even a few partial cents per kilowatt hour,
Adds up.
you know,
Do
you know,
you
trying
have
to save.
historical?
Beg your pardon?
Do you have historical pricing at all, like over the last 9 months to compare?
So for Constellation, it's been at 7.19 cents for the last 5 years. Back in April for the natural gas, when our contract expired, it was $5.80 per decatherm, so it's almost doubled. If you go with what they call the term, I guess, is rack rate type thing, and that's what they mean by the floating rate. So it's still a significant jump just by virtue of where the market's at. And it's I guess I'll call it an attempt on our part to control our costs as much as we can control it. I can tell you, as part of the market analysis that Constellation provided, the electricity rack rates or floating rates are closer to 39 and 40 and 45 cents per kilowatt hour. So they're considerable. It will definitely be in our best interest to contract for a period of time with either one of these companies.
Just not how long. That's the unknown. Honestly.
Or we could make out like bandits and look great.
That's what I mean.
It's definitely.
That's the decision to make.
No, it's definitely a huge unknown and a lot of uncertainty. And I guess to quote someone who said, you know, the least expensive for the most part is like here and now, that we sort of.
Well, I will say this, and if someone can correct me, please, I urge you to correct me. 2024 is a presidential year election.
Mm-hmm.
Things always come down around the election time.
Mm-hmm.
They always do. That's 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm. You're not wrong about that.
Right.
Okay.
That's usually generally.
All right.
Although
Mike,
I
any other
think
questions?
we would be, sorry.
Mike, any other questions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. And Elaine, anything?
No.
All right, so motion's been made and seconded. Sam, any questions?
I was just going to say we would probably be, I wouldn't be here, so you guys would be negotiating probably right after the presidential election, which also means prices go up.
Unless we opt to blend and extend beforehand.
There you go.
Who knows who's going to be here? All right.
She got you, Sam.
I might not be here next week, so.
If we see that the prices have gone down considerably, and I've asked both Direct Energy and Constellation, I've asked for weekly pricing, if they know of any trends, so that if we can take advantage of the blend and extend, we can, which will be the best that we can do if the price goes down. If it goes down by half a cent, obviously that's probably not worth engaging in that, but if it were several cents per kilowatt hour or dollars per decatherm, it would be in our best interest to do that.
So one final thing from me.
Yes, ma'am.
You have done way more research on this than I could have ever imagined. So do you have an issue with a time, like a 3-year, would you rather have just a motion to let you negotiate, or can you live with the 3-year?
I can certainly live with the 3-year. A lot can happen in 5 years, as we know. I always being the numbers nerd for the district, I always like the lowest price in comparison to what we were paying. But for example, for electricity, the difference is half a cent. The difference between 3 years and 5 years is half a cent. Half a cent over the course of that time. yes, over the course of time adds up to a considerable sum of money, but if in the meantime it goes down and we can blend and extend for more than half a cent, then it's, in our best interest to do that. So I think a time frame is fine, because we're not going to get, like, if they said, well, for 5 years, we'll match your current rate, I would say, please, let's go with 5 years. They're not going to do that. And they basically buy all this energy on the futures market, and, they're locked in for that number of years. That's why the prices vary. But to me, those aren't necessarily, like, between 3 and 5 years are not significant savings. It's sort of how I see it. But again, I always go in for the lowest number.
Okay. And the town joins us in these contracts or not?
So the town has its own contract through the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns for electricity.
Okay.
We have a separate contract, or had a separate contract with Constellation. As Direct Energy is also the preferred or joint purchase agreement provider through RIASC for both electricity and gas, and Direct Energy is also on the MPA for electricity and gas.
Okay. But in the oil, we buy together.
The oil we buy together,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any opposed? I'll ask for a vote. Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Palish?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who knew?
I
3
know.
or 4 items, and it's been.
Yeah, well, we don't have to talk about that for another 3 years. All right. The next item is consider moving the November 22nd meeting to the 29th, the 22nd being the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, a week from today. I'm neutral about this. I was asked to bring it up.
I'd like to make a motion
Okay?
to move the November 22nd meeting to November 29th.
Okay. I'll second it. Any discussion?
I think, Dr. Larkin, one of the primary points here is that as a result of the election, we're waiting for the Board of Canvassers to certify. And the town council will be swearing in their members on the 28th. So to me, it's good that we do so the following evening here.
Okay.
It also gives us a 2-week gap between meetings, which is something that, we're the ones who played around with the schedule, but I personally would prefer not to meet Thanksgiving week if we can avoid it.
Is there a write-in candidate that threatens your candidacy?
Gosh, I hope so. Sorry, did I say that out loud?
Oh, a write-in candidate. I was like, what are you talking about? Whose candidacy? All right. Any other discussion? Otherwise, we'll vote. Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas?
Yes.
Ms. Farnworth?
Yes.
Mrs. Palish? And I vote yes. All right. There's no old business. Our 2 future meetings are now the 29th. That is the discussion of the structural deficit. On December 13th, Dr. Sanchioni is going to tell us about RICAS results. Yes?
We'll have that presentation.
Can we also do the stipends on that date too?
We approved them this evening.
No, not, no. A review of the paid, all the activities that don't have a stipend associated with them.
For the
And
budget, or for this year?
no, just to talk, just
Just
a
to see
discussion.
what it is.
A discussion so that we can say, okay, with another $50 million, we'll be able to give everyone
All for it.
$1 million stipend or whatever it is.
Just to know even just what's out there
Exactly.
that's not funded.
So that we can go into the den of vipers, which is the budget process, with eyes wide open. Anything else that anybody else wants on the December 13th meeting at this point?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Cooper.
Cooper.
My kid.
Yes, Mom.
Peter.
Oh, even better.
When we talk about the stipends, could you let us know if, like I had said, I think there might, like, if we're not funding cross-country, if we're not funding jujitsu, could we just have that information too? I know we fund most of them, but I think there's still some that we don't, so.
Yeah, I actually have the high school list right now, but I'll check with the elementary
Yeah, if you
schools.
could, and middle, yeah,
And middle.
thank you.
All right. I'm going to ask for a motion to, yes, Dr. Ford, move into Rhode Island General, move into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42465A1, job performance, character, physical or mental health, superintendent goals and evaluations, Rhode Island General Law 42465A2, negotiations update, and Council 94 and NEA.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Palish.
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth.
Yes.
Ms. Pavo.
Yes.
Mr. Dakotas.
Yes.
I vote yes. We are in executive.
It was the arguing portion of our meeting.
Hey, I want to take this